Hello, everyone. This is Andres Restart. Tonight, we are doing a little bit of a fun debate. The Nintendo Switch 2 launch title will be 3D Mario, Mario Kart, Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, or something else? That's what we're going to have a bit of a discussion on tonight. And this time, I am joined by Abram from Backlog Banter. The YouTube channel will be linked in the description below. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing very good. Thank you for having me back. Always very excited to talk Switch 2.
Yeah, man. Whenever we talk, I don't know. I just feel there's so much energy. I'm excited to get into this, especially because I know both you and I are like big Metroid fans. We're believers in Prime 4. And regardless of whether it is a launch title or not, it's a part of the conversation. And that alone is pretty exciting. And then I have another friend of the channel, Nintendo Prime, Nate, hater of Metroid Prime. Just kidding. Just he likes Metroid Prime as well. But I'm sure he has his own ideas.
I've beaten every Metroid game ever. It's not, not a big deal.
Just every single one. No biggie.
There's not even that many, especially when you talk compared to Zelda. Oh man.
Yeah. But of course, Nate's channel is also linked in the description below. And yeah, we're talking about that Switch 2 launch title today. But I'm gonna give it a couple. Actually, we already have 100 people watching, which is 120. That's a pretty good start. Thank you everyone for showing up. I do plan on doing I do plan on having the Q&A as I typically do for live streams, but Nate has to do his own live stream in about an hour. So what I want to do is prioritize the debate between us. And so I'll spend a couple minutes, saying hi to you guys. If you guys let me know how everything is looking and sounding now. But we're not going to dwell too much on the chat to start. And then once we're done in about an hour, Nate will probably have to check out. Abram, if you need to check out sooner or later, by all means. But at that point, we'll then do a little bit of a Q&A. And I guess maybe Abram will join us for a bit. And that's the plan for the evening. I do want to say, hey, I know I haven't done 2 live streams in a week in a while. Unless there's like some sort of like special Nintendo Direct thing going on. But here it is. We got a second live stream of the week. And you want to know why? It's because there's more going on. There's more to talk about. And so hopefully when the Switch 2 is revealed, moving forward, we can have more than 1 live stream per week because there's just going to be so much to talk about. It's not going to be, this is the same stuff that we kind of had in the sort of like talking conversational cycle since last week, right? Like there's gonna be more things going on. So I'm excited, but let me check in with the chat right here real quick. Let's see if everything is looking and sounding okay. If you guys can let me know, I'd appreciate it. Pokemon fan, everything sounds good. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Monado Mario adds me. I was expecting a debate about whether Switch 2 will fail or not. Maybe next week. JK, hope everyone has a good day today. I don't even think do any of us have any fear that Switch 2 is going to fail?
No, I wouldn't say so.
I don't even think it's possible. I said this on my Discord earlier today. I was telling everyone, I'm like, it would have to be one of the most colossal fumbles of all time because they are so set up to be successful.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page. Like, I think the bigger question to ask is, and I know it was a joke question, by the way, but I think the bigger question to ask is, will Switch 2 beat Switch 1? That's where there's a debate. It's probably, we'll see what that happens. But is Switch 2 still going to like probably approach 100 million systems sold? Probably. How much more? That's what we have to sort of wait and see on. I see Having Hope here says everything looks and sounds great too. Thank you. I appreciate it. OMG says, Andres, what's your top 5 most anticipated games this year? Well, that have currently been announced. Metroid Prime 4 Beyond is number 1. I'll say Pokemon Legends ZA. Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition. But beyond those 3, there's a few other games I'm sort of looking at. Light No Fire. If that comes out this year, I'm not sure. Monster Hunter Wilds is definitely in the top 5.
We got to play together.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, for sure. I'm looking for a squad. So, and there's another game that's caught my eye. Crimson Desert. It's like a combination of like a medieval focused Assassin's Creed and Tears of the Kingdom kind of style game. Like it looks really cool to me, and you can like fly around burning down cities as the dragon or doing puzzles on these crazy islands in the sky. Like it looks pretty cool. Not all these games are necessarily coming to Nintendo, although I would say that a Switch 2 is launching this year, which we all expect. Like I think Crimson Desert and Light No Fire could come out on Switch 2, maybe even Wilds as well. Like so, conceivably I could play all these games on a Nintendo console, but I could also see myself just playing half of these on PlayStation. So we'll see what happens. But anyways, let's stop delaying the debate. I will focus on the chat and Q&A and stuff after we get the debate done here. So the basic idea, right, is there's pretty much 3 considerations for the launch title for Switch 2. There may be other little ideas, and we'll insert that as we have our conversation tonight. But it's basically between 3D Mario, a brand new 3D Mario game, the next brand new Mario Kart, or Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. What would be the launch title? What do we think it's going to be? And so we're each going to pick a side, but after about 20 minutes or so, we're going to switch sides. So to start, I'm going to roll a dice. Okay, Abram, you can pick. All right, I'm going to roll a dice, and whatever it lands on, that's what you're going to, that's what
very
your
good.
topic is
Sounds
going
good.
to be. Okay, so 1 and 2 will be 3D Mario. 3 and 4 will be Mario Kart. 5 and 6 will be Metroid Prime 4. Did I do that right? Okay, so I think I'm doing this wrong. I should have just had you pick a number. Hold on.
I like the way you've done it. So whatever this is, it'll come to me. So if it's 1 or 2, 3D Mario, 3 or 4 Mario Kart, and then Metroid for the others. So this is a big roll.
Okay,
here.
all right, yeah, all right. So all right, there we go. All right, so my hands are here. I'm just gonna drop the dice. I'm not manipulating this. All right, it fell off the book. All right, it has to land on the book. Okay, my hands are here. All right. That is a 3.
Okay, so I'm Mario Kart. That'll do.
You're on Team Mario Kart.
All right, wicked.
All right, Nate. Odds is 3D Mario. Evens is Metroid Prime 4. Okay.
All right.
It's a 5. So you're on 3D Mario. Crap. I threw and I'm on Metroid Prime 4. So what's funny about this is I came up with this idea because I wasn't feeling great about picking Metroid Prime 4. Which might sound kind of weird to people because I know I recently predicted Metroid Prime 4, but I will defend it. I'm not saying Metroid Prime 4 won't be a launch title. We're gonna have that debate. But anyways, that's where we stand. Abram, I'll let you have the floor first. Just go at it, and we'll see. We'll go from there. Why do you think Mario Kart would make sense as a launch title?
Yeah, I mean, so this is a really good option for me to get because ultimately, in my mind, it really is between either Mario Kart or 3D Mario for the main launch title from Nintendo. I think there'll be a secondary one. We can talk about that later. But in terms of the case for Mario Kart, I mean, obviously, the sales history and importance of the Mario Kart franchise kind of speaks for itself. In terms of sales potential, if 8 Deluxe is anything to go off of, and obviously massive results for a game like Mario Kart Wii as well, this could be the best-selling title on Switch 2. So that's a lot of momentum at the gate. Obviously, Nintendo recognized that with Switch, with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe just a month after that release. So there's a lot of, on a series side, history and trajectory and reason. But moreover, this game is primarily developed by an internal team at Nintendo EPD and Nintendo EPD 9. And they purely handle Mario Kart and ARMS as of this generation. Now, I don't tend to think they've got another ARMS cooking here. So my appraisal is that really, for the most part, since the launch of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, their team has been split in a couple ways. A couple people working on Mario Kart Tour, a couple people working with Velan Studios over on Mario Kart Home Circuit. But for the most part, their team has been pretty available. And even if a portion has been working on the 8 Deluxe Booster Course content, the majority of that team, or at least a large part, has had now, the better part of the entire generation to be ideating on this game, refining it, and over time building it up into something extremely impressive. So, this would be a huge deal to have that at day one, and I think Nintendo is certainly heavily considering that, and it lines up from a development perspective for people to be free and to have this game ready for as soon as presumably maybe an April launch. We'll see.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good opening stance for sure. It being the follow-up to Nintendo's best-selling Nintendo game ever outside of Wii Sports, which was a packing game for all base Wiis for years. So it basically is the best-selling game ever. I think that's a pretty good reason to think so, especially with the team having all this seemingly time to have at least one game ready. Maybe more than that, right? So that makes sense. But Nate, how about your opening statements on 3D Mario instead being the launch title?
Look, I think it's pretty obvious. It's been almost 8 years, right? 3D Mario, the last one they put out, best-selling 3D Mario ever. People were actually surprised we didn't get an Odyssey 2, which I'm a little surprised as well. They didn't follow that up, but because they were putting together a banger for a brand new 3D Mario, knowing it was going to have to launch Nintendo Switch 2, because they launched the Switch with Breath of the Wild. Nintendo also has a history of launching with either Mario or Zelda. So it just makes sense that Zelda went last time, and the last 3D Mario to launch a console was actually all the way back on the N64. It's just time. It's time to bring back what possibly could have been GOTY in 2017 if it weren't for Breath of the Wild. Have it come back, maybe show Astrobot how it's actually done in 2025 by getting even higher review. And of course, then again, Metroid Prime 4 is already confirmed for this year, guys. Like Nintendo said, it's coming out this year, so Metroid Primes tend to rate very, very high. But I think a Mario game will probably do better with the voting committee. Just everyone plays Mario. It just is what it is. But no, that's not really a reason. Obviously, worrying about GOTY stuff. What really matters is just it's been so long. It's going to be a system seller. They have the Mario movie already announced that they're going to start hyping up as the year goes on because it's coming out next April. So it's really great to pair a launch of a 3D Mario into a Mario movie. And I just feel like they need to impress. And impressing, Mario Kart's great. That's a system seller, proven system seller. Mario Kart 7 helped bounce the 3DS back after it had a really rough launch. That holiday season, Mario Kart 7 came out, 3DS bounced back. It did a price cut as well. It bounced it back. But then Mario Kart 8 didn't really do much to do anything about the Wii U because the Wii U was having a hard time appealing to people at all. Now, Switch 2 is not going to have that problem. It's going to appeal because of the Switch. But my opening statement is simply, it's time. It's going to be one of the most impressive games they can show off. And it's going to make everyone feel like I need a Switch 2 now. Like I have to have it now. I think with Mario Kart, you can wait. And I think with Metroid Prime 4, you can just get it on Switch.
Also, 40th anniversary. Right?
Yeah,
and so
that's
that's
40th anniversary as well this year. Yeah. But I didn't want to bring that. That was an argument I'll make later. But
fair enough.
I mean, we're gonna have a back and forth here. We're just warming up, right?
Mar 10 day coming up, baby. Come on.
Yeah. So I mean, listen. I think one of the reasons why I didn't want to pick Metroid Prime 4 going into this discussion isn't because I don't have faith in the game. Quite the contrary. It's just that I openly acknowledge that until this game is confirmed to be the launch title, the majority of people are just not going to believe it's the launch title. There's just no chance. Why? Because Metroid Prime 4 is niche by comparison to 3D Mario and Mario Kart. It just is. So, I don't think people are going to believe in this game until they see more of it, until Nintendo tells them more about this game. So a lot of the reason why I think Metroid Prime 4 can be the launch title is because of how much faith I have in this game, which I don't think most people have, because Metroid isn't as big as Mario Kart or 3D Mario. But what I believe is that Metroid Prime 4, once we start to learn more about this game, people are going to realize this is not just another game. It kind of also even ties a little bit into the conversation that I had today with today's video, talking about Xenoblade Chronicles X's latest trailer. and how I think that was a good thing for today, but a lot of fans are upset by it. Why? Because a lot of people do not care about Xenoblade. And so a little bit of this kind of stems from when we're kind of talking about like some of Nintendo's other IP, there aren't as popular. The masses are just not going to care as much, right? And so, it's hard to convince people when they haven't really given the series a try, right? Like a lot of the reason why there's a lot of fans upset today is because there's a lot of fans that don't care about Xenoblade. And I think the same kind of applies to Metroid. Now, Metroid's bigger than Xenoblade, I would say, at least per game, average sales, a Xenoblade game, could it hit 3 million? Yeah, but they haven't yet. Metroid has, and that was a 2D Metroid game. I think we all expect Metroid Prime 4 to even eclipse that. And so, I think Metroid Prime 4 is going to be something special. Nate, as you said, all Metroid Prime games review really well. It is likely going to be another Game of the Year candidate kind of game. And so that's not a bad start. But I also think the situation with Metroid Prime 4 is oddly familiar to the Breath of the Wild situation. And this kind of ties back into what I was just talking about in terms of people not believing in certain Nintendo franchises that are niche. Zelda's always been big. So I'm not trying to say Zelda wasn't big when Breath of the Wild came out, but it was not even close to what we consider it today. Like the best-selling Zelda game before Breath of the Wild was 8 million for Twilight Princess, and that was including both GameCube and Wii sales. It then went on to sell around 35 million now, something like that. Like so, the series it got more than 4 times bigger in terms of like the best-selling Zelda game, right? I don't think Metroid is going to become a 30 million seller. But what if it does reach that exploding point where it becomes a 10 plus million seller, right? Where it kind of grows by 3 to 4 times the multiplayer. All of a sudden, people are like, oh, well, you know what? Metroid is actually kind of like a solid launch title. But we haven't seen that growth yet. We don't have that understanding of how big Metroid's going to be. But you know who would? Nintendo. Nintendo would have a better understanding of what this game is because they know about it. They made it, right? They have probably a decent expectation of how well it's going to do. And one other little thing I'll say, we can theorize and assume that both Mario Kart and 3D Mario are likely to be nearly done. But we don't know that. I agree, but we don't know that. What we do know is nearly done is Metroid Prime 4. And from that perspective alone, I would say that its odds should go a little bit higher in terms of at least, fitting somewhere within that Switch 2 launch window. 3D Mario and Mario Kart seem like good bets, but they're still not known. And so that's my opening statement, but obviously I know this is an uphill battle. There's a lot more to say and sway, and I don't expect to win. But yeah, that's how I'm starting though.
I mean, I'll say this, right? Personally, me, Abram, would be most happy playing Metroid Prime 4 at the launch of Switch 2. So you have my vote on like an emotional level. How about? That doesn't really count for anything, but of these 3 games, that is the game I'm most excited about. Personally. I think now the thing about Metroid Prime 4 though is if you just look at it as a launch game, it caters to a very particular audience. And I don't even know necessarily if there's a way to widen that audience and to anywhere near, obviously, a Mario Kart or a Mario or even a Zelda. Like Breath of the Wild, I think was able to become such a sort of transcendent hit for the series and for the Switch because I think so many different types of players can jump into that game and love something different about it. It's obviously by merit of its open world structure, by merit of the complicated physics and the puzzles and everything in there. You can find something to enjoy no matter what type of player you are. I don't necessarily think that's the same for Metroid. And I don't also think Metroid Prime 4 is able to illustrate everything that the Switch 2 hardware can do as effectively as a Mario Kart game can. And I actually feel the same way about a 3D Mario, because what Mario Kart can demonstrate right out the box is that split Joy-Con multiplayer. That's why I think it's a really potent launch game. Because if you're a parent and you have kids, or you're buying it and you have a partner, right? You can get Mario Kart, you can break the Joy-Con off right there. Obviously, we know we have those much larger SLSR shoulder buttons, which are going to be a lot more conducive to drifting into item use. I think that Mario Kart right out the box demonstrates the appeal of Switch extremely, extremely well. And I don't necessarily think it's the same for 3D Mario, and I certainly don't think it's the case for Metroid Prime 4.
So I have some counter arguments for the Metroid
Sure.
side, right? But I do want to tell you that I kind of agree with you with Mario Kart. Like I do, like Mario Kart. It's the Switch was multiplayer right out of the box, right? It had the two Joy-Cons that can function as a single controller or two controllers. And from what we've heard of Switch 2, I think it actually makes Mario Kart make more sense because those Joy-Cons look more comfortable to hold. The new Joy-Cons, right? They're bigger. They have bigger SL and SR buttons. So like to use them in that single Joy-Con mode as one individual controller, I think they will function better. And I've had this theory that there might be the return of a double dash like mechanic in the next Mario Kart. I've actually I made a video a few weeks back and I was looking at an interview about the development of Mario Kart 8 for Wii U, and it was actually the second time they considered implementing a double dash mode. They ultimately decided not to do it for Mario Kart 8 on Wii U, but there is definitely some technical limitations there, right? On Switch 2, there's a dramatic power difference. So they're going to be able to employ some different technologies and different concepts that would be a little bit more demanding. That could include a double dash mode where you could have up to 16 characters playing at a time, because it would be 8 vehicles, or actually, no, let me rephrase, 24, because it would be 12 vehicles. And then if there's two people per vehicle, that's 24 people. You could have, in theory, 24 people playing online or through LAN play. That would be insane. And so all of a sudden, if that's Mario Kart, right, on Switch 2 as a launch title, not only does it show off the multiplayer with the improved Joy-Cons, but also cooperative play as well with those improved Joy-Cons. So I'm right there with you, buddy. That was my Mario Kart argument, and I gave it to you. But I do have a counter argument when it comes to Metroid Prime 4, and I think it's a little multifaceted, right? Because you talked about how Mario Kart would be a good fit, and I think I kind of supported your argument there. But I think Metroid Prime 4 is also a surprisingly good fit. And I think it's interesting you brought up how, Breath of the Wild was able to reach this far larger audience. And we sort of wonder, maybe Metroid can grow, but can it reach a whole new audience as well? And I think the answer is yes, even without it being some sort of something mind-blowingly different from what we've come to expect of Metroid, right? I think if it's just basically Metroid Prime 3, but a continuation for the modern era, I do think there's gonna be a little bit more to it than that, just for the record. But assuming it's just something along those lines, I still think they can reach a new audience. But it's not the same kind of audience that Breath of the Wild reached, right? This would be an audience that the Switch 2 is actually already appealing to. So Metroid is a very Western appealing game. It's a first-person shooter. And that's not really something Nintendo has in their wheelhouse until now with Metroid, that they're bringing it back. And from what we've heard of Switch 2, the idea behind it is that it's going to be able to play a whole bunch of AAA third-party games. We already know about the Call of Duty deal. The idea is that there's going to be a whole bunch of big third-party games, a lot of shooters, a lot of games like that will come to the console and might even be available day one. And so Metroid could be like Nintendo's game that they used to appeal to that kind of audience that wouldn't have considered a Switch beforehand. But now that they've caught up with technology, a lot of those types of games that we didn't have on the Switch era would now be there. And that type of audience, Metroid can appeal to. Especially because there are some rumors suggesting that the Pro Controller might have an audio jack, for example. I don't know if that's been confirmed with leaks or anything. I don't think it has, right? That's more of a theory. But if it is, that supports... I saw Nate do the whole head bob thing. I was saying there's a rumor about the audio, an audio jack thing for the Pro Controller. Rumor, right? Not a leak.
There's a rumor for it. Yep.
Right. So it's just a rumor at this point, right? But assuming that something like that is in there, that's sort of supporting the idea that Nintendo is going more in the direction of, hey, let's have more modern standards for online chat and interactions, right? Which would work really well with a lot of AAA third-party games. And Metroid Prime 4 can kind of be Nintendo's title to sort of help bring in that audience. And right now, the timing might work really well because Xbox is in a weird situation right now, right? We're in a position in the industry where Nintendo might be able to capture a large part of the market. And it's not the Sony diehards, it's not the Xbox diehards, it's those people that are always in between, that are always debating, oh, should I get an Xbox or a PlayStation this time? Because that's a huge audience that's always debating, because all they care about, they don't care about the God of War, right? They don't care about Halo. They care about Call of Duty. They care about NBA 2K, and they just want the best way to play that. So Switch 2 can come out and show that it can play these games relatively well, have a decent online infrastructure, and it has a killer app that appeals to the audience, like maybe Metroid Prime 4, something that would appeal more than like something like Mario would. Then from that perspective, if that's the audience that Nintendo's trying to stack on top of the audience they already have, right? Metroid might be a really good fit. But there's another thing I want to throw out there, right? We've recently, it's almost confirmed, but the whole idea behind the new Joy-Cons having this cursor option, this mouse option, right? Because we've seen the renders. There's even like a red blinking light. Next Handheld, who's had like several corroborations, confirmed it. Now, them confirming it doesn't confirm it's real, just kind of supporting the notion of it. If the Joy-Cons do have this like kind of mouse-like feature, for those who don't know, this is a third-party one, but basically the idea is like this is a third-party Joy-Con, right? But there's like a sensor here, and the idea is you can hold a controller like this. If you have a surface, you can move it like this, clicking it like a mouse. You still have access to these buttons on the side, and it works, right? Like this would all of a sudden give you like a mouse and keyboard like setup, which is really good for what? First-person shooters. What is Metroid Prime for? A first-person shooter. So I'm not saying this would be like a big deal because not everyone wants to play their game out at a table, but it's another option, right? And it's something that Metroid Prime 4 would take better advantage of than definitely Mario Kart, right? From that perspective. And I'll also say there's a debate to be had that Metroid Prime 4 might also have multiplayer. And if it does, it still also takes advantage of multiplayer right out of the box as well. So I'm just saying, Metroid Prime 4 could actually find itself fitting really well when you take all of that into consideration.
Sure. I actually have a lot that I agree with you there about, but I have to wait for it to be my turn. I'd be betraying
right.
Mario Kart here.
And guys, so we're clear, right?
Yeah.
We're just picking sides. We would all be willing to switch sides, right? And we might in a few minutes. But Nate, you've heard what we've had to say for this second sort of like round of thoughts on these launch titles. What have you to counter in regards to 3D Mario, how it might fit as a launch title better than Mario Kart or Metroid?
I think it's pretty simple. Mario Kart is going to come out early in the gen for sure. I don't think any of us disagree with that. It's going to be within the first 12 months of the system. I don't think
I'd be shocked otherwise.
Yeah, like they know it's a system. It's evergreen. It's going to sell throughout the whole gen. So that's the thing is like Mario Kart isn't really even no matter what features they bring to Mario Kart's Mario Kart. It's not going to be that while it is a system seller, it's not going to make people necessarily feel like they have to jump out and get it now because people know they're going to play Mario Kart for years. What you need is a game that's going to make you feel like you need to get this now. Now, I agree with the mouse functionality, and if that's in there and that's real and that's legit, perfect for Metroid Prime 4, great selling point. But you still don't have to buy a Switch 2 to get Metroid Prime 4. That's the thing. And no matter what they do with the visuals or what they do with whatever, it's still going to look really good on Switch because we already saw a trailer that is supposedly Switch footage, and it looked really good. And it might look better. It might be 4K with higher frame rates or whatever they might do. Maybe it has better particle effects, maybe even ray tracing, right? That's something that could make the lighting really, really awesome. I would love that, by the way. Imagine better lighting, atmospheric Metro.
Dude, I have some confidence that Metroid Prime 4 is gonna have some improvements on Switch 2, and it already looks good, but I definitely think they can push it up for sure.
But of the three games we're talking about, only one of them is gonna feel like you have to buy a Switch 2 to play it now. That's 3D Mario, because whatever mouse functionality they have, they'll do something in 3D Mario with it. It'll probably be optional. You'll probably be able to, use your standard controls and do it with the right stick instead, because that's usually what people do in lieu of a mouse. Kind of like when they brought over Galaxy in 3D also, and you use the right stick instead of the motion controls if you wanted to collect star bits and stuff. But here's the thing. Mario's the mascot of the whole company. It's the 40th anniversary this year. They have the Mar 10 Day coming up, which they always tend to do something Mario related, right? Interestingly enough, they announced that Game Boy Lego thing today. I'm kind of interested I might finally buy a Nintendo Lego set. I haven't bought one yet. That one might get me. I had something I was going to go over that, but I'll save that for later. The point I'm saying is, when you look towards a system launch, Nintendo firmly believes, and they have said this publicly many times, software sells hardware. So you need a definitive launch game that people have to buy Switch 2 to play. Metroid Prime 4 doesn't fit that bill. On top of the fact that Metroid Prime 4 obviously Metroid's not traditionally been a mega seller. This could break the mold. Maybe this is a 10 million selling game. I don't know. Especially if it's cross-gen. Maybe it breaks the mold, but 3D Mario is going to probably sell 20 million plus. You already know it's a guaranteed seller. You know how creative your team is. This team's been cooking. This game might be in development longer than Metroid Prime 4 was, because they didn't go ahead and make a second 3D Mario game right now.
I mean, they did announce the game in 2017, though. They announced the game before Mario Odyssey came out.
But that was a different development studio. They rebooted development. They rebooted that development after Mario Odyssey came out.
But before 3D World plus Bowser's Fury.
Do you think 3D
Anyway,
World
I don't think it matters.
Do you think that took the full might of the 3D Mario team to do that?
I mean, it was pretty good.
Well, we know
was
for a fact that it was not just them. It was co-developed with Nintendo Software Technology.
Yeah.
So they worked on it, but it didn't take everybody.
Yeah, I don't think it was the full team. And obviously, we don't know. Maybe they didn't have an Odyssey 2 planned at one point, and they just scrapped it. So that could have been a possibility as well. So the team might not have been working on this game the whole time. But my point is, the Mario team's elite. They're the elite of the elite at Nintendo. Like them and Zelda. And obviously, everyone loves Monolith Soft, but unfortunately, a lot of people don't actually play their games. Kind of sucks.
Retro Studios and Monolith Soft make Game of the Year quality games.
They do, but they're kind of like platinum games. They can't seem to get the games to blow up. I don't know why. Because they're amazing games. Like the Donkey Kong Country.
They got to take the Nier Automata route where you can see a lot of skin.
Yeah, there you go.
That was an option.
Little Suit Samus, here we go.
If they have bikini suit Samus, maybe that would increase sales by a couple.
That's 0 Suit Samus.
They gotta find a way. They gotta find a way to Laura Croft it with a V cut. That's all they gotta do somehow.
Or
anyways,
be good and hope word of mouth works this time.
Yeah, I hope so. I have a lot of faith, by the way, in all three of these games doing very well. I mean, obviously the Mario games are Mario. They're gonna do well. I have faith that
relative to expectation.
Yeah, is Mario Kart 9, 10X, Ultimate, whatever they call it, is it going to sell 70 million? That I don't know. That's an insane number to even think about. But who knows?
But maybe.
First new one in a decade. So
maybe.
Maybe. And it's probably going to have a better out the gate consistent content edition plan as well for many, many years instead of waiting, deep into the cycle of a Switch to do it, which made sense because again they had prior DLC on Wii U for it, so they already had two DLC for it. But I think that the big thing with 3D Mario is it is not just the mascot, it's not just the 40th anniversary, it's not just the upcoming Mario movie. It's really just it feels like a definitive game. Like if you guys remember back when Switch was revealed, they showed off Mario Odyssey in there, but they didn't tell us what it was, and people were debating if that was a real game or not. A big debate when they showed it in the Switch reveal. Is that a real game or is that just Nintendo teasing us with some made up tech demo thing like we've seen with the Wii U tech demos and stuff? And it turned out, no, that was the first time we saw Mario Odyssey. It never leaked. It was a huge surprise. And everyone's like, great. And then the more we saw of the game, we're like, damn, there's a lot of people that think Mario Odyssey maybe should have been the launch game instead of Breath of the Wild. But then again, Breath of the Wild was advertised for much longer, so it made sense. So I look at it as if people were thinking that back then, and it went on to sell 25 million. And I know that's not 35 million like Breath of the Wild did, but that's a hell of a lot more than any other 3D Mario game. And it was a 97, one of the highest rated video games of all time.
Yeah, I mean, I think this next Mario is gonna eclipse even Mario Odyssey.
Yeah, I think so. I think
especially because there's not going to be a Breath of the Wild to overshadow it this time.
Yeah. The only thing that's got to really worry about internally is what Metroid Prime 4, and I don't think the Mario team's worried about that. They're going all out. They've had not 8 years, but nearly probably at least 6.5 to 7 years of development or they've at least been thinking about and making ideas for the game.
Yeah, and I don't even think Breath of the Wild really overshadowed Mario Odyssey, because Mario Odyssey was actually outpacing Breath of the Wild for the first couple of years.
Yeah.
Breath of the Wild just had better
Breath of the Wild
legs.
just stayed evergreen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Breath of the Wild stayed evergreen. That was, no one thought that was going to happen because Zelda's never been evergreen. Literally, it's never been evergreen.
No.
What happened with Tears of the Kingdom, guys, where it quickly got to 20 mil and then kind of fell off a cliff? That's Zelda. It sells a lot and then falls off.
But that actually brings me to another supporting point for Metroid, right? It's just that this idea that, like, I kind of made some points how Metroid might make sense as a launch title because it could help to push that, to reach that new audience, right? And sort of showcase some features of the Switch 2 while still being a pretty good title, right? That people want. But there's another angle to consider, I would say, and it's not just about what Metroid can do for Switch 2, but what Switch 2 can do for Metroid. Because Breath of the Wild did have those legs. Breath of the Wild became a bigger game than 3D Mario, and putting Metroid Prime 4 as a launch title might put Metroid in the sort of like area where it will have the extra eyes, the extra spotlight. It'll be considered more, and it could reach a point where it has that kind of evergreen success that Metroid has never really been able to establish, have those legs. And then all of a sudden, Nintendo has another franchise. They're like, yo, we need another 10 million seller. Metroid Prime 5, here we go. Like, that is something that being the launch title will help. Now, I'll also say, right, to kind of counter my own point, Metroid just coming out in that first year of Switch 2 will have some of that impact. But I think the most impact is coming out as the day one title for that reason.
Can I do something crazy here? Can I introduce another possible launch game?
Let's go. I think I know what you're going to do, but go. Do it.
We got to remember that Nintendo never publishes just one game at the launch of the system. And one team who is reliably there throughout history is currently known as Nintendo EPD Group 4, and they make the more hardware gimmicky games. People in this generation will know them as the team that made Nintendo Labo, that made 1-2 Switch, that made Ring Fit Adventure, and I think critically Nintendo Switch Sports, which has very quietly been a massive performer for them in the second half of the generation.
Are we going to ignore everybody's 1-2 Switch?
I actually have a lot of fun with 1-2 Switch, but I've only ever played it at parties when we weren't entirely sober.
I'm not talking about 1-2 Switch. 1-2 Switch is actually legitimately good when you play.
I agree. I love 1-2 Switch.
Everybody's 1-2 Switch, legitimately bad, even with friends.
Yeah. But I think, when we look at that history and we look at the fact that, EPD4 is also made up of people that previously helped launch systems with Nintendo Land and with Wii Sports prior, the pattern is just thus that you almost expect intrinsically that this game is going to be there. And what's interesting is there's a real potential that if Metroid Prime 4 were the launch game, there would be a similar phenomenon, although not entirely the same, that there was between Twilight Princess and Wii Sports, which is to say that more casual Nintendo EPD4 title outsells the more hardcore game. The more hardcore game is there to service a smaller audience. So I think no matter what the title is, actually, no matter which of our games is the one that is there for the more core Nintendo fan base, and the wider Nintendo fan base too in the case of the Mario games, there's going to be this game from EPD4, and even though they release games so often, they were on a largely yearly cadence throughout the Switch generation. And we know that Everybody 1-2 Switch was finished quite a while ago. And we know, interestingly, Aiding, who helped co-develop Pikmin 4, actually did one of the last updates for Switch Sports.
The
basketball
right?
update.
Which means the team's working on what?
Yeah, I mean, my assumption, if I had to nail down the EPD4 game, because I think just saying EPD4 is too easy, I really do think it is a Switch Sports Resort, as it's been sort of, casually referred to in the community. That is sort of similar to a 3D Mario, a lightning striking again moment. Switch Sports was massive. They realized that even a more bare bones late generation title, Nintendo Switch Sports, was a big seller, right? So you bring that energy back with a larger game at release, you're gonna be
it's like guaranteed to outdo it for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. And if we want to talk about demonstrating hardware gimmicks, that sort of motion controlled gameplay is well suited to it. So I think that we should bear in mind that we'll get one of these games, but we're definitely getting something from this internal development group, and I do think it's Switch Sports too.
Yeah, no. Well, the thing is, you're kind of like for supporting my argument, though, right? And I totally agree.
Yeah.
Like Metroid Prime 4 is not going to be if it is a launch title, it is not the only launch title. I think it makes sense to have another. And what's interesting about something like a Switch Sports Resort is that they're almost like polar opposites, right? So they're like a perfect match because they reach two very different audiences. You put any other combination of Nintendo games, like there are other games that would fit as a 1-2 punch, but I think a Switch Sports Resort style game in Metroid Prime 4, it just reaches a very wide net. And so I think it would work really well. So like, yeah, I totally agree. And that's actually something I want to bring up. We have a series of codename leaks from Midori from last year. And like following those codename leaks, it's kind of been spot on. Like it pretty much told us what to expect from like the June Nintendo Direct. And it sort of supports that there is another Switch Sports like follow-up in the works soon, which would line up with a launch title of something like that. So I believe it. I think it's likely. And I think it would help to make Metroid Prime 4 more believable. Because think of it like this. To the point you were making, a Switch Sports Resort-like game, especially at launch, as opposed to just in the middle of the generation, and maybe it has a little bit more content and work put into it this time, it can reach an even larger audience. So, like, it's probably going to be a 10 million seller, if not more, right? But even if you lowball it, let's say it's 5. Metroid Prime 4, we expect to eclipse Metroid Dread, right? So it probably would also get close to being a 5 million seller, if not more, right? Like, you're kind of, if you look at both as like the 1-2 punch, you're guaranteed at least 10 million lifetime, at least, between both, right? And that's not a bad number of software sales from your first-party games to launch your console, especially if you are trying to invite a great deal of third-party games in the beginning, which is kind of an argument I have against Mario Kart or 3D Mario. Not saying that they wouldn't still work. I think they would. But when you have something like Metroid and Switch Sports, and not everyone is going to buy, right? You are leaving the door a little bit open for other third parties to have a little bit of a spotlight. And Nintendo has done this in the past. We look at some other launches that we don't really like, and you could argue maybe they shouldn't have done that, right? And I would say this is maybe more of a middle ground. But like you look at the 3DS launch where they had to pack into Face Raiders and Steel Diver, right, as something you could buy separately. Yeah, they had some third-party games to play at launch, but like that didn't do good, right? We look at the Wii U. They had Super Mario Bros. U, and then they had Nintendo Land. And then they kind of hoped the third parties would carry. That didn't work either. But I would still say that Metroid Prime 4 plus Switch Sports Resort is a way better Nintendo launch lineup than either what they had for Wii U or 3DS. It's not a 3D Mario Kart in terms of sales potential, but it's still far better than those. And I think another point to consider here is that they're going to sell out probably day one regardless, right? It's not just about the day one games. It's about the consistency moving forward. What's the month 2 game? What's the month 3 game? Maybe the month 2 game is Mario Kart. Maybe the month 4 game is 3D Mario. And so within 4 months, you still have all these titles anyways. And if you can't, and if you're going to sell out regardless, why not wait until there's enough units out there where you can get like 10 million 3D Mario copies sold in that first weekend? So, I think either way, whatever Nintendo chooses, it's going to work out for them. The most important thing is just to have good games, whatever those good games are, and keep them coming. So that's kind of I don't know if it's my final stance, but we're getting close.
So I can work against it in one key area, and I'm not going to even focus on me because this actually works against 3D Mario being a launch title. Why not pair Mario Kart and Metroid Prime 4 together at launch?
I mean, I think that's the dream. I think that's
best day ever.
You hit on the massive casual audience, eat with an easy bestseller, and then you hit on that super hardcore with the Metroid. It's an easy 1-2 punch combo at launch. Everyone's gonna want Switch 2 if that happens. Everyone. And by the way, neither one of those games really would overshadow third party like a Call of Duty, or let's say there's an Elden Ring at launch. Like those games don't fulfill
they're different
those desires. Like they're rarely, a lot of the third party games we talk about are very different than those games. So, I mean, Metroid maybe is the closest, but Metroid's going to be its thing, and Nintendo's going to give it Metroid's not Call of Duty, guys. It's not a military shooter, right? It's not. It's not that
But
action.
if it has multiplayer shooting, there could be a little bit of crossover. It's still sci-fi, and we don't even know what kind of multiplayer it would be.
Yeah,
right? Like they could do different things, but I get your point, and I ultimately agree.
Yeah. But again, I'm not saying Nintendo's going to do that. Yeah. I think that would be a Nintendo's big ball moment. Like, hey, when we're wheelbarrowing the balls down the road, Nintendo's like, you guys have been waiting for this reveal? Look at what we got at launch. They combo those together. That is just them saying, what are you going to do about it? How you stop us now? Well, I think obviously, for long-term success, it's not just about launch. You got to have a killer lineup.
Right. You want to keep it coming.
A game a month. Think the whole Switch generation, a game a month.
Right.
It's outrageous to think about that. Think about GameCube or think about Wii U. Like they weren't even close. Yeah, Nate, you were making a point earlier, and I have to argue against Mario Kart now for a minute because I have to. Because I don't actually believe that it's coming out on day one for a very particular reason. I think it's coming out with the movie because if you think about the demographic breakdowns of a big animated film like
that. Stole my point.
We're working together now because this is actually in the favor of Metroid Prime 4, so hold on for a second, but I have to do it. I can't hold it anymore.
It is.
The demographic breakdowns.
We've already done the switch over. We've picked random sides already. Like we're already past the point of switching sides.
Yeah. A film, an Illumination film like that it's a big 4-quadrant animated film. It's meant to get the whole family out. And the game that gets the whole family playing Switch after that movie is Mario Kart. I think that synergy is perfect, pretty much. And moreover, Andres, you're making the point earlier about selling out anyway, and I think that it is an important thing to consider. And there's this really great YouTube channel that I recommend people in your community check out. It's called Nintendo Forecast. He makes extremely in-depth economic and political videos. I mean that in terms of like global politics, explaining factors beyond leaks and rumors for why Nintendo might reveal at this date and not that date, etc. The thing he always talks about, which is certainly true, is this idea of inelastic demand at release, which is to say there is a certain set number of million of people who are going to come and buy a Switch immediately anyway. If you go back to 2011, the 3DS had an amazing launch period. You go back to 2012, the Wii U had an amazing launch period. What they didn't have was an amazing second quarter, either of them. They fell off of a cliff. And, they had those amazing launches with weak lineups. I think when Nintendo needs a game like 3D Mario or Mario Kart, but particularly Mario Kart, is down the line. I like your point about getting a bigger install base to have that bigger first weekend, but then moreover to keep excitement rolling. And Nate was making the point about how Mario Kart did that back in 2011 on 3DS. So you can almost release whatever the heck you want on that launch day. And it could be Metroid, particularly because Metroid Prime 4, more so than any other game, would be a technical showpiece. And if we think historically, Nintendo has wanted Metroid to serve this function. In Metroid Prime 1, released in 2002, that's not launch, but it's somewhat close to it. It was the same case for Metroid Prime 3. But most saliently, Metroid Prime Hunters was meant to launch with DS. It gets delayed, but the first Hunt demo comes out anyway. Metroid Dread launches to Switch OLED, and those environments are perfect for showing off that new screen. Nintendo has a history of wanting Metroid Prime to serve this function. So I think there's a world in which they say, hey, this is a physically similar device. The appeal is similar. What it has is more power. But we have this game, Metroid Prime 4, that can show that off. But Nate's got all kinds of faces to that one, so I want to hear the counterpoint.
Dude, can you imagine, like, hey, oh no, I know. I just want a quick little thing. Can you imagine though, like, hey, Metroid Prime 4 looks amazing on Switch 1. Look at what the power Switch 2 offers Metroid Prime 4, and it's just like this vast improvement. But anyways, Nate, utter whatever is inside that head that is so confused and angry at what Abram just said.
I don't know how a game that was built for Switch can be a technical showpiece for a console compared to games that were only ever built for that console. That's like my big thing here. Like, as whatever improvements are done to Metroid Prime 4 can be done to any Switch game. It's not built from the ground up for Switch 2. Because, again, it's a Switch game. It was been in development for Switch. They showed it on Switch. The only thing we even know definitively is that it's coming to Switch. We don't even know that it's cross-gen. We only know definitively it is a Switch game. It's like this would be like saying, why can't it be Pokemon Legends EA at launch then? Why can't it be that instead? Nope. They could also do visual improvements of that and say it's a technical showcase. And I get that Metroid Prime has always been
Retro Studios versus Game Freak.
No, but that's what I'm saying. I know that Metroid, like when we talk about Retro Studios and Metroid Prime, it's always been kind of a technical showcase in a way. Look at Metroid Prime Remastered and stuff like that on Switch.
Remember our debate on Prime Remastered?
I get it.
You remember that?
It's the best looking game on Switch, and that is totally fine. But that's my problem. They developed this game first for Switch, and then somewhere along the road, maybe, not even for sure, maybe brought it to Switch 2. And that's fine. But it wasn't built from the ground up for Switch 2. That's my point. Because if it was, it wouldn't be on Switch, because it wouldn't even be able to run on Switch. So the fact that it can run on Switch means it can't be a technical showcase because it's not going to take full advantage of the Switch 2 hardware. Something like a 3D Mario that maybe has only ever been in development for Switch 2 would be a much bigger technical showcase. And I know it's not realistic graphics and all that. That I understand. But you could be a technical showcase without going in that art direction. I think it's a lot different than like the Switch, because with the Switch, I don't know they were looking for technical showcases, because a lot of people feel like, oh, the games don't look that much better than they did on Wii U. And that's fair. But the idea was portable home console. Like, that's what they were trying to sell. That's what they did. This time around, they got to sell you on you need to upgrade. And I don't know that a cross-gen game that might, yes, look better, run better, better frame rates, whatever technical stuff they put in, it's going to make it look amazing. It's going to look amazing on both platforms. Even if it's only on Switch and it's just there for backwards compatibility, it's going to look amazing. I don't doubt that. I have this thing where when someone says a technical showpiece, but it's a cross-gen game, I can't think of a single cross-gen game in the history of gaming for any platform that's ever been a technical showcase. Like, that's actually the problem Sony was having with all these games, PS4 and PS5. None of them felt like technical showcases for PS5 because they looked almost as good on PS4.
Sure.
This is a really good case, Nate, because I actually agree with you completely, and that's why this is a fun conversation. I think you're 100% right. My personal opinion, if I just step away from the premise of our conversation here, is I think Metroid Prime 4 is only coming out on Switch 1, and I think there's a world where it's out before Switch 2 even releases.
How? There's a hot take.
I don't think there's a Switch 2 version. I simply don't at all. I think it's on Switch 2, it's there through back compat, and that's it. I think you're 100% right, because you have to think about the fact that, yes, if Switch 2 is indeed that much more powerful than Switch 1, then to make it look even better is impressive, but it's not going to matter to most people. I really think that what you're describing is the same phenomenon as Astrobot. I've had a PS5 since launch, but Astrobot was able to wow me in a way that very few other PS5 games other than like Returnal did, because they said, it's art direction. It's not fidelity, but what it is it's scope and levels. It's the feeling in the controller. There's a lot more that feels next gen about that isn't predicated on fidelity at all. And you can still have beautiful textures. You can still have long draw distances in New Kingdoms or whatever. I agree with you that I think it's indeed 3D Mario that's that technical showcase, because I think people overestimate Retro's ability to retrofit Prime 4 into a game for the next system. I really think that it's only on Switch 1.
That being said, I think there's a world where none of these games are a launch game.
Okay.
DK. Donkey Kong.
If only
3D Donkey Kong is the true.
If a 3D Donkey Kong
exists, man,
huge,
bro. I'd be so happy. I wouldn't care about being wrong in the slightest. I'd be like, yo, Donkey Kong is back,
just
baby.
the fact that we have a 3D Donkey Kong, like that's
right.
That's a big dub. That and putting it at launch, that's confidence. I like it, and I do think, even though, okay, what if that's not a technical showcase, that they could get away with that if for some reason they have a timed third-party exclusive at launch that is a technical showcase for the system. I don't know even what that game would be because it's not announced yet.
Should have been Monster Hunter Wilds.
Well, yeah, Monster Hunter Wilds would have been perfect,
long.
but that's already announced.
Too late, yeah.
This is a really important point. I think you are really onto something here, and I think it could be a Platinum game. Platinum's been talking kind of odd the last couple weeks, and they have taken an uncharacteristically long break from releasing games. They usually have a game a year. Of course, they have significant management issues. People are leaving that studio constantly.
Quite a lot of turnover.
There is, but you know, if you go back to Wii U, Zombie U was there at launch. That was supposed to be a big deal. It didn't really end up
Ubisoft.
being one,
Yeah.
but
That was Ubisoft.
I think there's a world where somebody else comes in with a big game. I think you're totally right about that.
I mean, I already think in a reveal trailer, the mic drop for third party would be if GTA 6 appeared. Like that.
It's not
No
Elden
one-
Ring.
Because no, well, I think Elden Ring would be really big, but I almost think people are starting to expect Elden Ring.
Yeah, I mean the thing is like maybe it's because I'm biased now because I've been playing these games on my PlayStation 5, but like, you know, the wow factor for me wouldn't be there because like I already beat the game. I already beat all the
Yeah.
DLC.
Well, I
you know,
mean, the
like,
big deal would be if Night Rain's there, the one that's not out yet.
Yeah,
That-
Night Rain would be neat. You know,
That-
I might still play it on my PS5 just because you know.
Well, yeah,
Well,
but yeah,
it was,
the
but-
continuity and stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
That's why I said, but like, yeah, in a reveal trailer, GTA 6 is obviously the big mic drop moment because nobody realistically thinks that's going to be there.
It would. Yeah, it would just what it would like. But the thing is, it's not a launch. We know it's not going to be a launch title,
No.
right? But
Something got found out. Thunderstash did some research.
Okay.
Came up on our podcast. It's already announced for Series S, GTA 6.
then it has to come to Switch too.
That was the thing. No
Right.
one realized it. Like everyone forgets that it's actually coming to Series S. Well, if it's going to Series S, then it shouldn't really be a mic drop moment, but everyone's gonna treat it
Right.
like
Like if it doesn't come to Switch too, then I think from everything we've heard at least, right, of what
Yeah.
of the capabilities of the console, this would be more of a relationship issue than
Yeah.
a capability or sales. Like from a sales perspective, it would be a bonehead move not to.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So
I think 3D
Um,
Mario does make the most sense. It's like the safest play. And one thing I
Totally.
think of Furukawa, if this is a truly iterative system and everything we've heard, or a lot of the stuff we've heard is what it is. It's another Switch. It's more powerful. That's the biggest selling point. Then we might have some gimmick mouse thing or something. Then that also tells me that Furukawa likes to play things safe. He likes to have surefire success. 3D Mario is a surefire success.
yeah.
I think it's
So-
the launch game. That's my personal thought is that is the launch game.
Abram, you're switching up on me last minute. How dare you? No, it's cool.
Then I go for Mario Kart 9.
Well, guess what?
Wrestling game
Guess
on the-
what? You both have fallen into my trap card. That's
have?
it. It's over. It's over. You want to know why? And you mentioned it earlier. Mario's 40th anniversary.
Yeah. Like that's the big thing. Like there's no
So-
way they're not going all out.
So
for the 40th.
here's the thing about Mario's 40th anniversary. I think there's a lot of possibilities for Mario's 40th anniversary. We could be talking about a Mario Maker kind of game. There could be a Luigi's Mansion 4, which timing-wise, Next Level Games is probably
That'd be
about
great.
ready for something,
Yeah.
right? So like these could be in the cards, and maybe these could maybe dissuade from my argument a bit here. But because of the 40th anniversary, and assuming it's anything even remotely similar to how they handle the 35th anniversary, I do think they need to have key titles at two key moments to celebrate the 40th anniversary. One for the holidays, and as you said earlier, Abram, one right before the Mario movie.
Yep.
And so here's the issue, right? Nate, you talked about how 3D Mario would be the ultimate showcase game, and I agree with you. I 100% agree with you.
It's gonna be
And
so
Abram, I 100% agree with your point about the positioning of a big Mario game before the movie. So, but here's the thing. You guys have already agreed the Switch 2 is going to sell out day one regardless of what Nintendo picks.
Well, Wii U did.
Right. It's more so about the consistency of the content. And I would argue
after launch day.
that you want your showcase game to come out to its biggest audience at the most important point of the year, which is the holidays. That's where you put 3D Mario. And where do you put Mario Kart? Right before the release of the Mario movie to close out the fiscal year, where Nintendo has oftentimes put out a huge banger kind of game on that level. And so that would have Mario in the October time slot, maybe, right? And then with that would have Mario Kart in the March time slot, right? Give or take a month. Like maybe they do February or something, but the point is it's close. And so then what's the launch title?
I
It's
know
not
that.
those two games.
See, this is where I'm going to disagree with you because I have one simple question for you. What's
Let's
more
go.
evergreen, a 3D Mario game or Metroid Prime 4?
I'm sweating. No,
Metroid
I mean,
Prime
the thing is, obviously 3D Mario has the history of being evergreen,
Yeah.
right? Metroid
my
Prime
thing
4
is that-
becoming evergreen would be a new thing.
yeah,
So it's
that's why-
hard to predict it.
like 3D Mario, they don't. Yeah, it'll sell out day one, but it'll keep people wanting to buy it in week 2 and week 3 and week 4 and week. That's what Breath of
Totally.
the Wild did. It kept
Totally.
people wanting to buy it until the next big game came out, which was like Mario Kart and then
Yeah.
Splatoon, right? So
Yeah.
you need a game that, yeah, it isn't just going to get people there day one, but is going to have them there in the second week and the third week, and not just waiting for the next game to come out, big game to come out in the holiday. They got to worry about selling the weeks afterwards. Otherwise, it's a Wii U situation where you sell out week 1, but then nobody cares about that new Super Mario Bros. U in week 2 and week 3 and week 4. Nobody cared. Wii U were easy to get after the first week. Nintendo doesn't want that. They want to have to fly units over to the United States because they can't keep enough on the shelf because the demand for their launch game is so big. I don't think Metroid Prime 4 can do that. I think Metroid Prime 4 actually needs a larger audience. Now it's going to already have it with the Switch version. But if you want to push the Switch 2 version, I feel like that makes more sense slotting that more towards the holidays, assuming Switch 2 comes out in the first half, where you might already have 5 to 10 million install base on Switch 2, raring to go to grab the Metroid Prime 4.
I
Now-
think it's a fantastic argument. I feel somewhat swayed. Somewhat, not totally, but
The
A
other
wrench,
thing-
a wrench in that too is also if Luigi's Mansion 4 is also coming out first year.
Yeah.
dude,
That would be sick.
yeah.
I mean, I see a world where it's 3D Mario at launch, and then you have Luigi's Mansion 4 in October, because
Yeah.
we can't overlook how big Luigi's Mansion 3 was. I mean, that was a seismic launch, right?
Yeah.
And
So
so-
seismic that maybe that should be the launch title.
Well, the thing about it is, we talk about how, the 3DS, the Wii U had bad launch lineups, but they still sold out. Nintendo is like, okay, we can do that, but we don't want to just do that. They know that the recipe for this sustained success is a big game at launch. Just because they don't have to have one for that first quarter doesn't mean they don't want one for the first quarter. So that's also why I think, even though, we make this argument that it's not needed, it's going to sell out, well, you still want that big tantalizing piece of software, and I think it's 3D Mario. I just don't see a world where Nintendo's like, just because we can get away with it being Prime 4, we're going to. And I think that Nate makes a good point that, if you had a renewed interest in Nintendo because Switch 2 launches and you're building up hype, and then like 3 months later, Metroid Prime 4 comes out, even if it's only on Switch 1, people buy it back compat. There's a lot more just intrinsic interest in the brand, and I think that it gets a similar bump. It doesn't get the same bump, I don't think, but I think it gets a similar one. And that game's going to command enough attention no matter when it comes out. That's the thing about it. I think we sort of look at Metroid Prime 4 like it's in this precarious position where it needs like a shot in the arm to sell more. And I think that that's true, but it also isn't, because if you look at what Nintendo did with Pikmin, obviously Pikmin's a slightly different situation because it has a real stronghold of an audience in Japan, and they marketed to that, and they blew the doors off the marketing in Japan. You still can say, hey, Metroid Prime 4 is coming out in September. Between, let's just say, February and September, we're going to start ratcheting up trailers and merch, and we're going to put out 2 and 3, and we're going to build up hype. You can do that. It worked for Pikmin. It could work for Metroid. I don't
Totally.
think it needs to launch.
Yeah. I mean, and I think it goes to the point where, like, I think we can kind of make good arguments for any of these games,
Yeah.
like, truly. And as long as the consistency is there, I think it's going to be fine regardless. Like, I'm on the same page with that. And I do want to speak to something you mentioned, though, Abram, that you, like, outside this debate, right? Because I know you picked a side for the sake of the conversation. Like, you talked about how you don't think Metroid Prime 4 would actually have a cross-generation version. And you mentioned, like, maybe, like, an enhancement patch. Personally, I think Metroid Prime 4 is going to have a cross-generation version. Specifically that game. But that would be the only game. However, I do think there's going to be something else done to several Switch 1 games, which is there will be an enhancement patch. In other words, there's going to be tiers to enhancements here, right? There's going to be games that you just put on your Switch 2, and there's the same experience here they were on Switch 1, exactly the same.
You
And
King O.
Yu King O, right? Yu King O, I theorize, is going to fall into that tier 1, where there are certain games that there will be an enhancement patch for, where they're upscaled to 4K, maybe performance enhancement, right? Better loading. That's tier 1. And I think a handful of key games will be that. Like, there'll be the Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, maybe Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, maybe Pokemon Legends ZA, which might answer to why we didn't see a Switch 2 version, because it's not really a Switch 2 version. It's just some minor enhancements that don't require that much extra work, right?
On Mar 10 Day, they announced an enhancement for Mario Odyssey.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That would be one of those key titles, maybe Smash Brothers, right? Metroid Prime 4 would be the tier 2, where it'd be probably maybe the only example of a tier 2 where they actually like literally just built up a Switch 2 version of the game. And that would be a separate release, kind of like how Nintendo handled Breath of the Wild and Twilight Princess, except in those cases they just felt worried about controls. In this case, they would be worried about visual improvements, because those generational switches, there wasn't really that much of a visual leap. So this would be a different scenario. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of put my thoughts out on that. That's kind of what I anticipate. And if that's the case, though, right, like when Metroid Prime 4 comes out, or when Pokemon Legends ZA comes out, regardless, these are going to be important titles, obviously for Switch 1 owners, but they'll still be treated as big releases on Switch 2, because they'll be adapted in some way for the console, in some way. And so even I think it's gonna be a big thing just to show Legends ZA footage in the Switch 2 reveal trailer. Even if it's Switch 1 footage, it just upscaled to 4K, and us seeing a Pokemon game in that reveal trailer, I think is gonna say a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I'm super curious how they're going to handle this, just in the sense that I truly don't know how much effort you want to put in and what the return is for something like this. Like, I think about with Metroid Prime 4, is there a world where they simply said, 6 months ago, hey, Retro, we need you to code in and update code into the game so the game knows it's on a Switch 2 and lets you use the mouse functionality, and that's kind of it? Or do they say, we're going to put you guys on for another year's worth of development, a Switch 2 version of this game, we're going to ship that? I just don't know. I don't know what they would find the most tantalizing.
I will tell you that the game, we've seen evidence of the game being the testing stages since 2023, and early 2020, March. And we've also seen some job hiring suggesting that they've hired talent that would have experience with ray tracing. So obviously none of that's confirmation of anything, but it does support the idea that they could have an advanced version ready in 2025 for Switch 2.
They could. I'm also interested, though, just in what the Switch 2 could intrinsically do to a Switch 1 game. I was playing, my housemate just bought a new big TV, and me and my girlfriend were playing Pikmin 3 Deluxe. I'm like, this looks weird. It looks too good. And I realized that just in the TV settings, they had motion smoothing, and they had some game mode on, and in real time in front of me, it was believably upscaled, and the frame rate was better. I wonder if there's a world where Nintendo has some sort of, system software level solution to where there's an intrinsic bump for these games, and they just simply go off that and they say, you know what, you put your Switch 1 game into your Switch 2, doesn't matter what the game is, it's just simply going to run better in this sort of standardized way.
Yeah, I'm not expecting that. That would be cool, though.
Yeah, I think I just have a hard time believing that, unless they're going to be like, hey, we're going to do a Nintendo Selects style line, we're going to re-release Breath of the Wild, it's intrinsically upgraded in these ways. They could do something like that, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. So any final thoughts on our debate here? Do any of us feel slightly more swayed in any direction or another, or it's just kind of we shared our thoughts? You feel like you won?
Yeah.
You know who really wins?
Everyone
right?
wins.
Yeah.
Right?
We're getting all these games.
Or whatever Nintendo announces as a launch title. So
yeah, I just love Nintendo games, and everyone wins right now.
Bro, all these games we're talking about, the fact that they're all on the table for year one, that alone is just okay, we're gonna be eating good regardless.
This would never be something we would even consider if Switch didn't do it in 2017. And now it just feels like it's time. It's lining up, and Nintendo just throughout the Switch era just consistently had these years where they just dropped a bunch of hits.
Yeah.
You did remind me of something though. I remember when we got the first look trailer. So here's the crazy thing. Let's say Switch 2 reveal is I don't know, next week or the week after or something, right? We still might not know what the launch title is, because when we got the reveal trailer for Switch 1, we still did not know what the launch title was. We assumed it was Breath of the Wild though. but we did not know it was Breath of the Wild to that January presentation, less than 2 months before the console was coming out.
Yeah.
And I remember watching that Switch presentation at the very end. They had that final Breath of the Wild trailer. And I was like, come on. Please be the launch title. Please be the launch title. And then it said March 3rd. And I was like, holy I was just like so excited at the end of that January presentation. Just to get that confirmation. I mean, in hindsight, it made so much sense. It was the logical choice for so long. But we did not have confirmation until right before launch of the console. So this debate might go for a while more, even after the reveal, which is kind of crazy, but I guess that would just be fun. Which means it's gonna be Metroid Prime 4, just so you guys know. But all right, whatever. Joking aside, I am now gonna get to super chats. Nate, if you gotta go, feel free to step out. Are you stepping out now? He's got to go. He got his own live stream, so make sure you check him out. And we'll see you soon, buddy.
Yep. See you guys.
Bye.
Enjoy your Q&A.
Thanks. All right. So I got several super chats, and I did promise that I would do 12 pull-ups this time with my jank shoulder if we got over the 5. So I will be doing that. But first, let me read through the super chats here. Abram, feel free to step in with your own opinions, if whatever they may be. So first one, Taker610, thank you for the super chat. Where's Jimmy Butler going? Oh, wait, wrong topic. It is the wrong topic, but that's fine. You can ask me whatever you want. So I'm not going to dwell too much on this because obviously this is basketball and not Nintendo related. But I will say I think Jimmy Butler, the current max player for the Miami Heat, who's owed about $50 million this year and next year, he supposedly doesn't want to play with Miami anymore, but apparently he kind of went back on what he initially said. He wants to be traded. Initially, he said he would play for any team but Miami, but now it's only Phoenix. But in order for Phoenix to get Jimmy, Bradley Beal would have to be traded. Miami does not want Bradley Beal because he would be worse and more expensive than Jimmy. And Bradley Beal would also have to waive his no trade clause, which he does not want to do. So we're at an impasse here. It's seemingly impossible for this to happen. I think there's a decent chance, unless Jimmy Butler decides, okay, I'll play somewhere else for less money, which the whole reason he's having this issue is because he wants more money. He might just decide, hey, I'm going to have to play for Miami, do well this year, and then hopefully I get paid in the summer. But I'll move on from that topic. That's kind of what I think is going on, but we'll see if things change there. Amiibo King earlier, thank you for the big super chat. Very much appreciated. Brother, 3D Mario and Kart has no trailer yet. It's releasing with third-party games and Metroid, potentially Pokemon ZA. Nintendo wants to focus on third parties to emphasize it's not just a Nintendo exclusive one-trick pony. It seems like Amiibo King kind of agrees with like my Metroid take here, that it's kind of more so like it's more so about what Nintendo's vision is for the launch and the kind of audience they're trying to stack on top of the audience they already have. The Legend ZA point, I'm not sure I agree with.
Yeah.
But I also think we're just not sure when Legend ZA is coming out. All we know is it's coming out at some point this year. But we still haven't even seen footage on it, so you have to think it's like, at least a few months away.
My take on Pokemon very quickly is that I think it's coming. I think ZA is coming out in the summer. That date people are circulating is wrong because Nintendo doesn't release on Fridays anymore. But I think that is sort of the area we can expect.
With that August Amazon listing?
Yeah, that's just not true.
Right.
But I think that game is coming out early, and I think we're getting Black and White remakes this year too. That's my prediction I'm locking in. I think we're getting 2 Pokemon games this year.
I mean, like, I kind of hate it, but I kind of love it at the same time. So
they've taken so many years off. Like, it's an unprecedentedly long period of time. I think it's going to happen again like it did in 2022. Also, just one more thing I'll say to Amiibo King here. I got to tell you, my friend, Nintendo doesn't care about, a little gap between a reveal and a release. With Rare, I can't even really think of an exception in the last couple of years. I guess maybe Pikmin 4 would be the exception, where they didn't announce the game and drop it within 4 or 5 or 6 months, right? So if they come out in January and reveal a bunch of games and the system launches in April, I think they could have a 3D Mario there for sure.
I kind of want to push back on that a little bit. I feel like it's not a perfect system, but I do feel like there's a correlation between anticipated sales of a game and reveal to release window. I do think bigger games tend to have a longer reveal to release window. But there's definitely a lot of flexibility there. That said, given the circumstances, you know, I think all of this is going to be a very quick turnaround. Like, the fact of the matter is, I think you and I both agree 3D Mario is coming out this year no matter what. They haven't announced it yet. So in terms of like the expectation of sales potential here for 3D Mario, it's already going to be shorter than usual, no matter when it comes out this year.
Yeah, I mean, even just think back to last year. A salient example I can give of a big game is obviously Mario Wonder. It's a great corollary to what we're talking about here. Revealed in June and out in October. So this would be a little bit shorter, but this is also why I think the Switch 2 is launching in September. But that's a different conversation.
Yeah, I know you have a different opinion on this, right? But also, you didn't think we were getting a reveal last year, and that part's been accurate, right? Yeah. So, we'll see. I just feel like with all the leaks that's going on right now, it seems hard to feel otherwise, but we've been somewhat down this road before, so we have. I was saying to Nate when you had gotten up before we started recording, I was saying I hadn't talked to him since I was on his show, really, whenever that was, last summer or fall or whenever. I was like, man, we don't really have that much more concrete information than when I spoke to you 6 or 7 months ago. Hey, that cursor though.
That cursor though. That's cool.
Sensor. Yeah. Oh, well, now we have the GameStop listing, which is a rumor because we don't know if it's real. But I mean, I don't know. It kind of depends on what you want to believe, I suppose.
I just looked over at the chat. By the way, Botox Games, Abram on a different planet with September for real. Bo, go back to watching Insidious. That's what he was doing earlier today. Go put on one of those other dumb Insidious movies. That's my advice to you right now. Bo, people don't know, is a friend of mine, so I'm allowed to be a little mean to him.
Yeah, it's okay. You can be mean to him. Just don't hurt his feelings too much, or however much you like. That's fine. Free Metroid hat with the super chat. Thank you very much. I think the Switch 2 will sell out day one, no matter the launch title, Mario or Metroid, and we agree. Which is why it may not matter what it is, as long as it's good. I think that's all that matters, and that they have something good immediately after and consistently moving forward.
Yeah, my sort of rubber stamp on that is I'm actually a lot more concerned in Nintendo saying, hey, here's every game I would love if they were like, we're going to have 7 big games. I'm just assuming it's going to launch in April for the sake of this point. To me, it's more important that they say, here's what's coming in May, here's what's coming in June, down the line, than that day one, for sure.
Yeah. And I'll say that if you're expecting a September launch, then I can see Legend of Zelda and Prime 4 coming up before. Yeah.
My personal headcanon, just in case your chat is interested, I think it's September, and I think that Prime 4 is launching in like April or May.
Okay. So my sort of thought process, right, just to get it, because the fact of the matter is, more evidence presents itself, my opinion's willing to change and fluctuate. But my most recent prediction, right, is that the console will come out in June, maybe May, right? The reveal's this month, and I think Metroid Prime 4, against my better judgment, which would lead me towards picking Mario Kart 3 Mario instead, I'm going with Metroid Prime 4. And I do recognize that some of this is fueled by the rumor from Samus Hunter, right, who's had they've gotten some things correct lately, so it's kind of like, okay, well, yeah, they're saying Prime 4 would be the launch title. They've been right lately, but also there's a long history of being wrong. So it's scary to just rely on them here, right? I just think it makes a lot of sense.
I don't want to stir that pot too much. All I will say on the Samus Hunter front is that I think that Samus Hunter has been making increasingly less believable claims. How about in the recent weeks?
It's been a little bit more chatty than I was more inclined to believe them when it was less frequent and more, hey, there's a theory, here's a little cryptic thing, a couple days later, oh, that materialized, right? And
they also had a great run of, what was it? It was MEO into what the thing they leaked was the Donkey Kong Direct and Xenoblade.
It was,
so that was great.
MEO, Xenoblade X,
yeah,
and then the Donkey Kong Direct, right? And PR even corroborated. Like they went into
Yeah.
Samus Hunter's thread and like, yep, she's right. Like something along those lines for the Emio thing. And one more thing that maybe somewhat supports Samus Hunter, depending on how you feel about certain other leakers, right? But Samus Hunter, after the Nintendo report of a June to July launch for Switch 2, Samus Hunter actually said May to June, and then Nate the Hate said he heard chatter of May to June after Samus Hunter, which doesn't prove anything, but just kind of like if you trust Nate the Hate, apparently he's heard the same things as Samus Hunter.
I don't really trust either of them, to be honest with you.
Well, I mean, the thing is, these are rumors, right? So that's,
Yeah.
and I think what was good about our debate is that we didn't really talk about any rumors. We just talked about what made sense.
That's actually why I have more fun speculating about the games, because I feel like to me that's really rooted in development timeline and history and things like that. When it comes to release date and everything, it's kind of all up in the air. It's just sort of who you trust the most, or sort of where the most sources point.
Yeah.
So.
But the interesting thing that right now is that we are getting a lot of photo leaks, right? Like we're getting a lot of third-party accessory leaks.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that are very believable leaks and are kind of less rumor and more, well, this is kind of hard to refute. And so with that much more stuff going on, I'm getting more and more confidence in what the rumors are suggesting, right? Like the rumors and the photo leaks are lining up pretty well. So, but
yeah, I mean, it ultimately comes down to me of like, why are all these photos appearing? Why do people allegedly have like retail Switches? In my mind, the reason I say September is I think to myself, okay, well, if you launch in September, you can sell out your first wave of hardware in like September, October, and then you can have another big wave for the holiday, and you can be in stock or hit that perfect balance of in out of stock for 2 major cycles of production in the calendar year still. You can do more if you launch earlier, but I just think that Nintendo is saying to themselves, well, we want to avoid stock issues here. We're just going to start producing early because we don't know what kind of volatility there's going to be because of everything from a new president in the US to chip shortages or whatever. So, there are probably units in warehouses. There's definitely production happening in Vietnam and in China or wherever. But I just don't know if I'm sold on the idea that it's happening because it's releasing in 3 months. Part of my mind says, well, it's happening now because they just never want to be at a deficit of stock ever now. They just want to always have enough.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I agree with you totally, but I still think it's like a summer launch, right? Like, I mean, the thing is, September still. I'm thinking early summer. You're thinking late summer, really.
Yeah, pretty much.
So yes, it's not too far off, but it's just one of those things where, like, when we're talking about picking a month, picking it like a date, like we agree with the same things that are happening.
Yeah.
But there's still flexibility there. So, we'll see. And I think the only reason like I align with June is just because there's several people who have said that.
Yeah. Yeah. Nobody's saying September.
Right. And so like I find, but just to be clear, I don't just blindly believe the rumors either. It's just,
of course.
We have the evidence that matches up to what they're saying though. And that's why I'm like, all right, there's 3 different sources that are saying this period of time. They all have good track records, but also all this like surrounding circumstances seem to feed into that, which is also why I don't believe the March release date rumor, even though there is some corroboration on that, because that's just, I mean, it's one of those things where I'll believe it when I see it. Like Nintendo's gonna have to tell me themselves before I believe that, because it's too short of a turnaround. Now, April seems slightly more believable, that 1 extra month. Like, I can see a 3.5 month reveal to release window because that's only a month shorter than what they did for Switch 1. But that's still kind of cutting it close, and they would have to reveal the console like next week or something for that to be in the cards.
I have a question for you actually about this. Do you think there's a chance, because I've been in my mind, because Bo has been saying to me for a long time, March, April, and the more he says it, he's very persuasive. He's getting in my head. I'm like, okay, maybe it is April.
Is it just like if we keep telling you it though, like the power of persistence?
It could be. It's making me feel a little shaky on my September island. But what I was thinking about is, let's just say, for the sake of argument, it's April. That is such a short time.
You cut out for a second. You said, let's assume. Are we assuming April?
Yeah, let's just assume it's April.
Okay.
That's the amount of time they've had for the reveal to release of the Switch Lite and Switch OLED. And so that's If you're just doing like a more iterative piece of hardware, that short period of time is fine. But this is a new generation. This is them saying we need to show you new games. We got to show you all kinds of new
Right.
stuff. I wonder if there's a world, and I'm curious what you think about this, where the Switch 2 comes out in April and it actually isn't like a massive jump up. And indeed, Switch 1 and Switch 2 coexist for a long time. And it's
Well,
and
I
it's
mean, I think
closer
it's
to a
'cause
Game
they're
Boy
gonna
Color.
So I agree and disagree, right?
Yeah.
I agree in the sense that there will be coexistence. There's going to be coexistence, like regardless. There's going to be
Yeah.
coexistence, like because the Switch 2 is probably going to cost at least $400. They're
I
going to
agree.
be appealing to a certain audience. They don't want to cut out the people who can only currently afford what Switches are at now, or even less than that, right? Like there's an audience that Nintendo hasn't even reached yet because they haven't dropped the price yet. So I actually think that once the Switch 2 comes around, they're going to position Switch 1 to reach a different audience they have not been appealing to. You know, the 200 and below audience, right? Or the 150. Like, you know, when Nintendo consoles are in their end days, they hit that $99 pricing skew. And I don't know if we'll ever see, like, maybe I can see Switch Lite getting there someday. Maybe.
Yeah.
Like, but and so I mean, I guess there's been too much inflation, so maybe not even that, but 150, you know, 130 ish, like maybe I can get Switch, I can get there. Point is that I think there's that kind of audience still. I do think Switch is pretty much a given to become the best-selling console of all time. And I still think there's games coming out for Switch 1. So you know, I think it's gonna be a coexistence thing, especially because Nintendo want to put all their marbles in one basket. There's no way Switch 2 fails, right? But you still want to kind of maximize what you got going, and there's going to be a transition period because Switch 2, all the games they sell on Switch 2 aren't going to sell that much compared to how Switch 1 games sell right now, because there's over 100, there's like 140 plus million people who have a Switch 1 who can potentially buy those games.
Yeah.
In the first couple years of Switch 2, it's gonna be like 10-20 million, right? Like, so there's a lot less sales potential for the software, and so they want to have some years where they can kind of balance that out, where they still have some Switch 1 stuff selling as Switch 2 audience builds up. So it kind of has to be that way. But in the sense that we'll look at it as like a Game Boy to Game Boy Color transition, where it's almost considered like the same system in terms of like Nintendo. First off, I think that's kind of bogus, right? Like that they combine them. They're separate games.
Yeah.
But no, I don't think it's going to be quite that. It's been over 8 years. Like it's been too long for it to be that. I think we're talking about a true next generation leap. Like hardware wise, from everything we're seeing, this is gonna be one of the biggest jumps we've seen.
Yeah.
In I don't know how long. So no, I don't think it's gonna be quite that. But it's a yes and no thing, as I think I've already explained.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because I think there's a world where Switch 2 costs $450 or something, but then they drop the Switch Lite down to $150 or whatever.
Sure.
And the OLED they stopped manufacturing. Like I think because that's kind of what they did with 3DS when Switch launched. You were really only finding the 2DS.
Sure.
Or the new 2DS XL, whichever one it was. And the other models kind of faded into the background. So you had this really budget device and then this really premium device. I think you can go that way, but I think you can also go the other way where you keep selling the OLED and you sell it alongside Switch, because when I say Game Boy Color, I kind of mean it in the sense of like Pokemon came out after Game Boy Color did. Like Gold and Silver, you can play on OG Game Boy. Like I think that there's a world where,
but Game Boy Color enhanced those games.
Yeah, sure. And so that's why I think I could see a world where it is more like what you're saying of these enhancement patches or something similar. But a lot of big software is still coming to Switch 1. It's just it plays better or a little different on Switch 2. Or they simply say, Switch 2 is out, Switch 1 has like 6 more games, and then we're done. And then it's just Switch 2.
Yeah. I mean, if the Switch 2 had come out last year, I would be more inclined to agree with you. But I kind of think that it's the last 2 big games are Legend ZA and Metroid Prime 4 that are like this. They're coming out for Switch 1, but they'll also be, in some way, as I talked about earlier, relevant on Switch 2. There will still be Switch 1 games announced, but they're going to be remaster remakes. There might be still some new games, but we're not talking about like big games, right? They're going to be like, I don't know, some sort of more casual kind, like ring, like not maybe like Fitness Boxing 4, those kinds of
Yeah.
games could maybe
Yeah.
still be announced as new titles for Switch 1. But otherwise, the big stuff, it ends in 2025, and it's just remasters and remakes for another year or two.
Unrelated, but I keep seeing one of your community members, Bunda, has asked me a couple times my 5 favorite gaming franchises. I see you. I'll go really quick.
Let's go.
It's Halo, Last of Us, Pikmin, Metroid, and Mario Kart, probably.
Nice.
Probably that.
Yeah, I don't. Is this my 5? I mean, for me, it's Legend of Zelda, Metroid, Super Mario, 3D specifically, right?
Sure.
Xenoblade, and maybe Pokemon. Like Pokemon stirs up the most nostalgia for me,
Yeah.
So I think that's what it is. It's just sometimes Pokemon doesn't always hit, but Pokemon has a similar level of high, I guess, as the others. But let me continue on with the super chats here, and I want to get to my achievement goal that I mentioned. Boom Mini made sure we got to the goal with multiple super chats here. Andre's Restart is awesome. I appreciate you. Thank you for those super chats and the compliments. I very much appreciate it. Having Hope has renewed their membership, been a member for 23 straight months, almost 2 whole years. I'm so excited for Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition. Did you see the trailer today?
Yeah, I'm very excited. I'm not a massive Xenoblade fan. I've played all the games actually, because I think Monosoft's a cool developer. But the one that I spent the most time with, that I enjoyed the most, is X. On Wii U, I was all over that game. So I'm really excited to go back to it, because I never beat it when I was in high school when it came out. So I want to give it a proper go. I just love the setting so much. That sci-fi really speaks to a lot of my interests in fiction in general. So I'm really excited to go back to it.
It looks so good, and it seems like they've made some pretty good enhancements. Like the most important one to me is the UI enhancements, making the font bigger. Like to me, it's a big deal, because I could not read it 9 years ago when I had better eyesight. So it's good that I can read the new font now with my worse eyesight.
I don't know if he's in here, but Tucker is wrong about there not being a difference between the UIs. He's just simply wrong. It's a much better UI.
I don't agree with him. Not on this. Yeah. And then it looks like there's new content throughout the campaign, and then there's still like a big epilogue story with a whole new area, which maybe there is some debate that there might not be a new area, but there's a whole new area, and it looks crazy.
I love the art direction for it too. It looks awesome.
Looks crazy. Some people are already throwing shade at Tears of the Kingdom. They're like, hey, this is going to have better Sky Islands than Tears of the Kingdom. I don't know about that, but maybe. We'll see. I would say Xenoblade X already had some Sky Islands, which is kind of interesting. So, like, Monolith Soft has helped to develop Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, right? So, like, Monolith Soft making games, open world games with Sky Islands, like, they got a big history of doing that. So I'm definitely curious on what's going on with the new environment there. Is R3 Lite? What are the chances that Metroid Prime 4 is the game that Nintendo's using to show off not just the Power of the Switch 2, but also the mouse feature on the Joy-Con? Thank you for the super chat. I mean, this kind of fed into my argument about Prime 4 being the launch title. I mean, I think that these are considerations. Now, if you want to, I don't know how we can assign like a numeric value to what those chances are. I know, like, you're a little skeptical about Prime 4. All right, well, all right, hold on. Yeah, I think it kind of depends on what assumptions we're making here. You're on Team September right now, right? You're on this Team September island. It's a little lonely right now, but
it's very lonely.
Maybe more will come. As time progresses, some people will come live with you on that island. But let's assume that this island doesn't exist, right?
Yeah.
Let's assume that it's April to June, right? The launch of the Switch 2. Does that change your stance on how they're handling Prime 4?
Yeah, it does to an extent. My feeling, I got a couple feelings. I think Prime 4 is done. That's my number one thing right now. I don't think they're working on the game right now. If they are, they're tuning it. They're doing polishing and various things. I think there's a world. Let's say it's April, and let's say that. Let's even ignore the launch question. Let's just say it releases in. Let's say this releases in September. How about? Let's say Metroid Prime 4 is one of their big like fall holiday type games.
Sure.
I could see, because also Metroid Prime 4 is also historically released in that window of time.
Yeah.
I could see a world where the game, again, from my point of view, is only on Switch 1 in terms of what you're purchasing. But if you're playing on Switch 2, there's something in the game's code intrinsic that recognizes that fact and lets you use the mouse. I think that would be super sick, because one of my main hardware disappointments with the Switch is that like pointer control just doesn't really work, because there's no sensor bar to like anchor your cursor. So if you're playing Pikmin 3 Deluxe or you're playing Skyward Sword HD or whatever, you'll constantly have to recenter that pointer because it'll just keep drifting away.
Right.
A mouse wouldn't have that issue. It would solve the no sensor bar but being able to point issue that Switch had no solution for. And if there was a world where I could play Metroid Prime 4 with that style of pointer control, I certainly would. And I think that Retro realizes that, and I think Nintendo realizes that. And so I would feel most confident saying, yeah, this is primarily a Switch 1 game, but if you're on Switch 2, you can use that mouse.
Okay. So I'm going to provide a counter argument. And this
Sure.
kind of goes against not just my point about Metroid being a launch title or even having its improvements, and even just the whole theory about the mouse cursor thing. But how pressable do you think the control stick and these buttons are when you're playing in that way? Like, is it
Yeah.
comfortable and accessible enough for you? Like, are you going to be able to be like, okay, I pressed that button there? Like, you know what I mean? Like, yes, we have easy access to them, but are we going to be able to press them readily and accurately enough to where we're going to be able to play a game like Metroid Prime 4? Like, I can easily see this being able to use us being able to use it for simple games, right? Where you only have to press one or two buttons to begin with. But a game like Metroid Prime 4, where you want to have full access to all the face buttons, is it going to actually feel right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to think about like, because I've not played Prime on the Wii in a while, but I'm trying to think about it like you're locking on with Z, you're switching your beams with the D-pad, you're using bombs and missiles on A and B. There's a world where you offload more of that to your, I'm right-handed, so to your left hand, and then you're really only aiming and shooting with your right hand, and so you really only need the triggers. I think you could come up with a control scheme for Prime in particular that would work for that, but also maybe you can't. And what you're raising is a larger concern I have about this gimmick in general, wherein I just don't think that that a Joy-Con on its end like this is necessarily wide enough to be comfortable for a long session. Like, I don't know if I want the pointer controls, right? But there's a world where I start playing with this mouse and like my hands like kind of squashed up, and I want to sit down and play Metroid Prime 4 for 3 hours at a time. I might get 45 minutes in trying to play with the mouse, but like, oh, my hands are too big, I can't do this. So I'm gonna be really curious how Nintendo actually even implements this, because I think that comfort is a major potential downfall here.
Sure. So as we kind of talk about it, like I'm thinking about different elements surrounding this, right? One, I mean, the Joy-Con 2, right, is a bigger controller. So when we use the Joy-Con 1 as an example, we have to take into consideration that that's not how it's going to feel.
Yeah.
And so the Switch 2 version of the Joy-Con, these issues might not really be as much of an issue, right? But also, even if it is, that's not going to necessarily stop Nintendo if this is just like an alternative way to play, which is what it's going to be regardless, right? It's not
100%.
going to be the main way we play Metroid Prime 4. It's just going to be a neat option, and that's all it's going to be. But I still think there may even be like a lot of third-party accessories that you like put your Joy-Con into like a little like plastic or whatever that makes it feel more like a normal mouse, while still having access to all the buttons.
That's a really interesting idea. I hadn't considered that.
Yeah. And I'll say this though, like I've been holding this third-party controller, like the mouse, throughout this conversation as to help me think about it. And I ultimately do feel like that, I mean, what's going to happen, right? You still have access to the two shoulder buttons are easy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I would even say that clicking this stick down for the stick click option is going to be easy. And now moving it around would be weird, but you're not going to be expected to move this around in mouse mode, because when you're moving around the mouse mode, that's the replacement for it, right?
Yeah.
That's the better version of it already. And so in that case, all you have to really worry about are the 4 face buttons here. And honestly, as I feel them, I think it's pretty easy to know where the 4 face buttons are.
Yeah.
I think we'll be fine, especially when we just look at it as an alternative option for people to try out if they like. If they don't like it, guess what? You don't have to do it that way. That's like the tertiary option or less. So I don't think it's going to be that much of a problem. But is it going to be a big focus? That's where there's maybe some debate. Like, even if we have this functionality, we don't know how much of a focus we're going to see of it in different Nintendo games or even third-party games.
Yeah, I mean, I see a lot of people throwing out like, oh, it would be super cool for like a Bo had mentioned to me, like, Kid Icarus or Star Fox or whatever, or Sin and Punishment, as some people say online.
So cool.
And that would be sick, but also like you can play those games with gyro or with the right stick, right? So I part of me wonders if this is like this mouse mode largely like a UI, like system level UI type of thing. What I had been proposing the other day was, what if this is in part a way to navigate, like an optional way to navigate around your home menu and to drag and drop game icons and folders and badges or various things? Because anything you can do with the mouse to like redesign or rearrange your home screen, you can do with your finger undocked. So I think that there's a chance that this could deepen how you connect with the menu on the system.
I see. I mean, I think there's a lot of application for, like, to the points you're saying. I think it increases the accessibility options for a lot of stuff, right? I think it makes DS games, 3DS games, Wii games, and Wii U games more compatible from a like, a retro NSO perspective. Like, we could actually play these games in a good way with this option. It would be better than just relying on the touchscreen or like Joy-Con, like motion sensors. So there's a lot of different things it could do. I mean, there's even a lot of theories that the C button is like a community feature button, and like there's a lot of implications there. Like, to what extent? Maybe there's like a Miiverse 2.0 sort of thing, and maybe you want to be able to like kind of click around as kind of like you would be on a computer on a social media app, like potentially, right? So I see a lot. Hey, there might even be the return of the internet browser. So,
yeah, I think that those are all really smart.
Not needed, but they might bring it back.
It'd be cool. I mean, I actually think that a new like Nintendo style social media replacement for Miiverse is increasingly likely after Nintendo had to pull Twitter support from Switch, because I think they know how powerful like this sort of community social media marketing is for just getting exposure to their games. But I think they're also, just the way they protect their IP and everything, I think they got obviously really worried by Elon Musk and the way changing, and so they pull out, right? So I think that if they say, we can create something that services a similar function, but we can control a lot better, I think that they will try to do that.
Absolutely. I think there's definitely, I think it's a big reason why they might do it, for sure.
Yeah.
Still have quite a few super chats to get to here, and I still want to get in with the live chat, and I still have to do the pull-ups. All right. Okay. There we go. Free Metroid hat with another super chat. Thank you for the super chat. Hot take. What if there is a upgraded Switch 2 version of Prime 4 that can't run on Switch 1? That's what I'm saying. That's what I think they're going to do. And I think it's going to be awesome. Like, I made a video a few months back of like how like a Prime 4 on Switch 2 could look. And, they could really, I mean, one, better draw distance, cleaner textures, obviously a higher resolution. I don't think the frame rate would improve. Like, it would still be 60, because the Switch 1 version is going to be 60. That is the standard for all Retro Studios games. And it would be a real tragedy to make the most modern Metroid game not 60 when all of them have been, the Prime ones. So I think that would be the same. Now, is there a 120 FPS option? Maybe. I don't even really necessarily care for that. But like, I think, working on the lighting effects, I think there's still a lot that can be done there. Maybe introducing ray tracing, like there's definitely a lot that can be done there. Better particle effects, just better, like there's a lot of interesting things they can do to make the game look substantially better. So I'm excited at the premise. But going back to Nate's point from earlier, we don't even know if the game's has a Switch 2 version at all.
Yeah,
I just think it's likely.
a potential point in your favor is like looking at the games that came out on new 3DS and Switch,
Mhm.
like Hyrule Warriors, or
Sure.
not Hyrule Warriors, Fire Emblem Warriors, first
Or
year of
both?
Switch. Yeah, Hyrule. I keep getting them confused for some reason. Fire Emblem Warriors is on new 3DS, which is really weird.
And so is
Eh,
Hyrule. Well, isn't so is Hyrule Warriors, right?
There
There's
was
a Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition, isn't there?
Yeah, but technically that's a little bit different because like the new 3DS version of Fire Emblem Warriors and the Switch version came out together.
Oh, at the same time.
Yeah,
Okay.
Hyrule
All
Warriors
right.
Legends came out on 3DS after the Wii U version, but like 2
Got it.
years before the Switch version. The Switch version just combined them. But the
Got
point is, there was a time when Nintendo was like, okay, here's a couple games we want to release on both for different purposes. I think you can make a case that they might have a much easier time doing that and see a similar amount of upside with the Switch 1 and the Switch 2 version of Prime 4. So like if that happened, I wouldn't be shocked. I think it actually makes a lot of sense. For me, I just pragmatically think to myself, well, this game has been in development for so long, it might be done with development. They've spent so much money on it. Do they want to invest another 100 million or whatever it would be, 50, 60, whatever it is, whatever that number is, to a new version? But I think you've made the point to me in the past of, well, if you've already spent that much, why not spend that little bit more and get this other version that could, take the game higher and further? So I mean, I feel like it's a coin flip if there's that Switch 2 version
Sure.
or not.
Yeah. I mean, as I talked about earlier, I think there's going to be tiers to this, right? Like, I think for some
Sure.
games, there can be simple enhancements that don't require that much work because these games are made on a PC already at higher specs and they have to scale down, Like, so from a certain perspective, it wouldn't be that much work to make a better version. But what I'm talking about here is not just a slightly better version. I'm talking about like a catered version that's made kind of like with Switch 2 in mind, at least to an extent. So yeah, I understand your coin flip perspective, and we're not going to know until Nintendo announces it. So
Yeah.
Is R3 Light with another super chat? Thank you for the super chat. Here it said, this looks like this is directed to you. Abram felt that way about Astrobot because all the PlayStation games are the same. Astrobot dared to be different. Well, it dared to be Mario. It is different from a lot of games.
It is. I mean, it fills a niche in PlayStation's catalog that they don't feel super well in the modern era. Like they had that Sackboy game at the launch of PS5, and I played that and I thought it was really good, but it's no Astrobot, obviously.
Yeah.
I think PlayStation's catalog gets a little bit too much hate from an, frankly, largely Nintendo perspective. I think that when you look at, especially later in this generation,
Here's your point, I'll
PlayStation.
be right back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go. But
Yeah.
continue talking.
Sure. I mean, PlayStation has, especially this year, if you look at the breadth of games they've published or funded or put out, everything from Stellar Blade to Astrobot, and obviously failure. It was a failure, but Concord, like they are trying a wider breadth of games. I think it's a little bit unfair to say that like they make one type of game and then they make Astrobot and that's the only exception. But I get your point in the main. And moreover, it did dare to be Mario, and obviously the team is heavily inspired by them. So everyone should play Astrobot in this chat.
I love
if you have
Astrobot.
access to it. I love
I beat it
Astrobot.
recently. It's so good.
Yeah, I loved it. Really loved it.
And it made me, when I would play it, I would just think, oh, this is Mario Galaxy 3. Like, it honestly just got me more excited for 3D Mario on Switch 2.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, scrolling through here. THX1138 with a super chat. Thank you. Mario 64 Showcase N64 Metal Mario Warp Painting.
Yeah, I mean, they're 100% right. Like the shaders on Metal Mario on N64 was a massive technical showcase. Like a lot of what Mario 64 did, even though it looks rudimentary now, was like groundbreaking in N64. Also unrelated, THX 1138. That's an awesome movie. So shout out to your name. That's a really George Lucas, for people who don't know, made Star Wars. Made that before Star Wars.
I didn't know that, so I'm gonna have to take a look. But yeah, it is interesting thinking about how crazy Metal Mario was. Yeah. Or like, I mean, on that note, like just think, I remember the tech demo for Ocarina of Time, which looks nothing like the final game.
Yeah.
But like them showing like Link fighting another character with 3D polygons, and there was like particle effects as they would clang metal, like that was crazy. And just thinking about the end result with Ocarina of Time, that even has like 3D spatial audio. Like, have you heard that like there are some people who are blind? There are some tools assisting them, but they can play through the game because of the audio effects, which to me just is an insane attention to detail.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's so cool. THX 1138 with another super chat. Thank you. Maybe the rumor of Return delay was for 3D Mario. Could be. Supposedly that's the Mario Odyssey delayed the Switch reveal like a month. Not everyone believes that report, but it did come out. It's just hard to believe. It's one of the things about the believing that the Switch 2 was delayed because of the game specifically. It's a little hard for me to wrap my head around that, because the games they're talking about, the teams that would be making them haven't put out anything for a very long time.
Yeah.
Like as Nate pointed out earlier, like the Mario Odyssey team, is there anything they've released throughout the Switch era outside of Mario Odyssey? Like maybe they helped out a little bit with Bowser's Fury, right? But
yeah,
there's been no dedicated whole-on game that they've made in the last 8 years that's come out.
No, and you also have to remember that this team, in a 4-year gap, made Odyssey after 3D World on a different piece of hardware, right? Like, the amount of time they've had is unprecedented. Even if you said, for the sake of argument, everybody at Nintendo EPD Group 8 worked on Bowser's Fury, which they didn't, but just imagine that they did. That there's still enough time for them to have made another game after that. That's like the cadence they're on. So it's very peculiar.
So you want me to give you some I don't know, hopium excitement?
I would love that.
Theory. Okay. Remember how I mentioned the codename leaks?
Yeah.
From Midori, and how they've been pretty spot on. Well, there was one that there is not really a certainty about what it is, but the one that we know, one is SP Red, which is it's an X3D Mario. Like, we know that. Like, Red is always for Mario. That when it comes to code names. But Mario Odyssey, its code name was Red Star. Okay, so SP Red's like the next thing after that, right? The next Mario game after that. And that's what kind of we're talking about right now, the next 3D Mario. But there's another code name for a project that there isn't like a certainty on what's going on with it, and that's for Silver Star. And so what's interesting about this is that there was two interesting kind of theories about Odyssey, well, at least related to this idea. One is that whatever happened to the Mario Odyssey sequel, never happened. There was no DLC. There was a whole Isle Delfino thing. We don't know what happened with that, right? Maybe it was just an idea was cut, whatever. But to call the game Silver Star actually implies it's not a Mario game, but still might have something to do with Odyssey. Now, what's interesting is, back in the beginning of the Switch era, there was another game that we actually know for a fact now, right? It's been since confirmed that it was a project that was canceled. There was an open world Donkey Kong game that Activision was working on.
Yeah.
But it was canned very early on. Now, the story is that Nintendo then took that they were actually excited about the idea, at least to start. And they're like, all right, we'll make our own Donkey Kong. But no Donkey Kong has come out since. What if Silver Star they saw that 3D Donkey Kong concept and were inspired to make their own Donkey Kong after they couldn't get a third party to work with them to do it. They took the Odyssey engine and started building a Donkey Kong game. Hence why it's not named after Red for Mario, but something else, Silver. And by the way, Donkey Kong Silver is actually, I would argue, is not that much of a stretch, because one, Donkey Kong's a gorilla. You have the silverback gorilla, and also Super Donkey Kong is silver. So obviously those are loose little things, but the point is there's a project code name out there, and there's this story suggests that Nintendo, around the time that Odyssey finished, would have wanted to start making a Donkey Kong game. And maybe you just forget about that, but when you think about how it's been 8 years, and how there's been enough time for them to make 2 whole-on AAA games, what if one of them was a Donkey Kong project, didn't fully finish it, but they got close and decided to save it for this next generation. And so they've actually been kind of working on 2 games this time, and both will come out in the early parts of the Switch 2 era. One's a Donkey Kong game, one's the next 3D Mario.
I want to comment on this because Donkey Kong is another one of my favorite franchises. Also, I had to chuckle because I saw somebody in your chat say Donkey Kong sucks. I'm like, man, that's a terrible opinion. But their username is King K. Rool. King K. Rool himself is in our chat. That's very interesting.
Yeah, he's like, no, there should be a game about me instead, sailing the 7 seas.
So if you go back
Monkey
to
Islands.
at the group that is now Nintendo EPD8 that makes 3D Mario began as Nintendo EAD Tokyo, and their very first game, directed by Yoshiaki Koizumi, was Donkey Kong Jungle Beat.
It all adds up.
And what's important about this is that there is no dedicated team that makes Donkey Kong games inside Nintendo. There are support teams in Nintendo that help other partners throughout time. That's been Retro, that's been Rare, or it was a team called Payon that for a little bit of time in the middle worked on like King of Swing and handheld games or whatever. The only internal developed Donkey Kong game, unless we're going to go way, way, way back to like the NES era, is Jungle Beat. The steward of that, the director, is Koizumi, who's obviously the head of EPD Group 8. Now, here's something I've been thinking about, Andres. If you think about a game like Metroid Samus Returns, or you think about Pikmin 3 Deluxe, those came before new entries. But they came before entries from the same developer in Mercury Steam, or in the team aiding, which is who made Pikmin 3 Deluxe and then helped Nintendo make Pikmin 4.
Right.
Forever Entertainment, who's making Donkey Kong Country Returns, can't do that. They're not equipped to make their own games.
No, I don't think it's the same situation there.
No, and the particular extent of their agreement with Nintendo is they're going to remake games. The reason this is important is that I think Nintendo could have said, well, we have this Donkey Kong game that Koizumi's team has been working on, concurrent to or after or before or wherever this 3D Mario game. Donkey Kong's not quite ready yet. We're going to go contract a studio that they only need to make one Donkey Kong game, a filler Donkey Kong game here. They're going to put that out. We're going to market it alongside the theme park. And then we don't need them to make this new game because Koizumi already made it. And it's coming out in 2026 or 2027.
We're on the same page, buddy.
Yeah.
It all kind of adds up. Like it all
I really think it does.
Makes sense. I'll throw one other thing out there. Remember there was like a Donkey Kong rumor?
Yeah.
From like in the middle of the Switch generation. It was actually pretty early on, but like it was one of the first times I had heard like something personally.
Yeah.
Right? I can't say where I got it from, but I had a source, right?
Sure.
I do not. This is someone I know. It is no longer a source, right? So we're clear, right? But they had told me about this, and I only spoke up on it because there were other people who apparently had heard the same thing.
Yeah.
So, anyways, and all these nothing has materialized since, and that's kind of like the tricky thing about like reporting on things that haven't been announced yet, is there's always a risk that plans will change, will be delayed or canceled, what have you, until you end up looking like a hack. But it's just because the nature of the business is that game development is tumultuous, right? But if true, and I personally have no reason to doubt the person who told me this, right? Like I don't, but obviously people, this is a personal thing, right? I can't expect other people to trust that, but that wasn't the only person who said this. This is a known thing reported by multiple places. And so it's just interesting. Like there's all these little dots, over the Switch generation, they kind of suggest, hey, something Donkey Kong kind of makes a lot of sense.
100%. And you look outside of games too, the Lego sets, the theme park, the movies and everything, Donkey Kong is heavily, heavily featured. And you don't do that if you're not planning something larger. This is, again, the Pikmin model, the merch and everything. Right. Nintendo franchises exist outside of games now. And so if you look at everything Nintendo's doing and how central Donkey Kong is to all of it, it's not all for Returns HD. I would bet my life on that. There is something bigger coming.
I don't think you hire Seth Rogen.
Yeah.
Just like, if you don't have big plans. Like that's a big hire, Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we're on the same page. And so I'm very inclined to believe the theory that they've been working on more than one project, which of course they would be, right? Like there's no way that one of Nintendo's greatest developers ever has been unable to produce at least one game in the span of 8 years. I think
Absolutely.
the reality situation is just due to circumstances. They've been working on multiple things, which is what most devs usually do anyways, right?
Yeah.
And there may very well be, and of course, there may be some support work, right? It may not just be that same exact team. They worked 4 years on one project, put it in a bin somewhere, and worked on the next one. There's probably like a back and forth and things like that. But I do think that there's a good chance both these games are like close.
Look at what Nintendo EPD 10 did with Mario Wonder and Pikmin 4. You stay quiet for a while and you can pop out with 2 games. It's possible.
Right.
You should do the next super chat. I have to run to the bathroom quickly and I'll be right back.
Cool. All right. Free Metroid hat. Thank you for the super chat. If launch is April or May, Prime 4 at launch, things like Donkey Kong, Pokemon ZA, maybe Star Fox between launch and Holiday 3D Mario, Holiday Mario Kart. Before Mario movie, if the launch is later, Mario at launch. I'm going to have to reread that. All right. If launch is April or May, Prime 4 at launch, things like Donkey Kong, Pokemon ZA, maybe Star Fox between launch and Holiday 3D Mario for Holiday. Mario Kart before Mario movie, if the launch is later, Mario at launch. Okay, I understand what you're getting at. So the idea is, if we're getting an April or May launch, Prime 4 makes a lot of sense. Then in between, we see things like Donkey Kong, Pokemon ZA, maybe Star Fox, which there is a rumor for. And then come holiday time, after we've gotten all these other cool games to fill up the between stages, we get 3D Mario. And then will be a few months before the Mario movie, April 2026, we see Mario Kart will come out right before that. However, if the launch ends up being later, you think 3D Mario will be a launch title. Like, say, for example, Abram's correct. We have to wait till September for Switch 2 to come out. That's when it makes sense to launch with 3D Mario. I see where you're coming from with that. That does make sense. I'm on team the Switch 2 is coming out sooner, so I think 3D Mario will be saved for closer to the holidays, so it won't be a launch title, but that's obviously just an opinion. We'll see what actually happens. But that is a good lineup of games. Just to fill you in, Free Metroid Hat was just suggesting kind of like the trajectory of games. If Switch 2 comes out April or May, it launches with Prime 4. As an in-between, we see Donkey Kong, Pokemon, and Star Fox. And then, by the way, I don't know if you heard, but there is a rumor for Star Fox, by the way.
Oh, yeah, I have.
And then in the holiday, be 3D Mario, and then Mario Kart before the movie, as we discussed earlier. But if Switch 2 is launching later, like you suggested, it's just 3D Mario as a launch title. So
yeah,
I mean, it makes sense.
If we take what Free Metroid Hat here is saying is that's the launch date, we got to remember that New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe came out only about 5 months and change before Mario Maker 2. So I don't think it's impossible that just because Returns HD is this year, another Donkey Kong game isn't. So I think it's an interesting theory.
Actually, it's be very different.
Yeah, and moreover, the Star Fox rumor. The Star Fox rumor, I have a hard time believing because I think it's just like it's such a colorful idea that Star Fox Adventures or a game similar to that is coming back. But I think that there is a world where you can close your eyes and you can piece together a narrative in that an action-focused Star Fox game is coming, and this is the 3D action game that Namco has been working on with Nintendo. Because if you remember, Namco made Star Fox Assault. There's history there.
Absolutely.
But I think there's a chance. I don't really like if there was a corroborating source on this, I'd be a lot more confident in it. But as it stands, I think you can paint a picture where this could happen. But I'm iffy on this one.
Well, put it this way: if we get a Switch to reveal this month, and we basically learned that Metroid Prime 4 is indeed a launch title, or it has like enhancements, right?
Yeah.
Then a lot of the Samus Hunter, then that's another that's something that not many people are predicting, right? Like you and me are the crazy men. They're like, hey, this makes a lot of sense, right?
Yeah.
But we think it makes sense, but there's not like insiders saying it's going to happen, right? But if we kind of get some extra info about some of the claims that Samus Hunter has said are coming to fruition, then I'm like, all right, that Star Fox thing may seem kind of crazy, but after they put out this Metroid thing, which most people think is kind of crazy, then we're like, all right, well, maybe it's crazy just because it's the truth. and the truth is
Yeah.
oftentimes pretty hard to predict. But we need a little bit more evidence or corroboration. I agree with you, but it's a really cool rumor, man. If we're getting Star Fox and it has like an adventure element to it, but I actually prefer the notion that this Star Fox adventure kind of rumor, it's not actually Star Fox Adventures, but it has some similar elements in terms of that there is like a Zelda-like structure to it in terms of
Yeah.
exploring worlds, puzzles, dungeons, but I need it to have that Star Fox essence. One of the issues that I have with Star Fox Adventures, amazing game, by the way, right? I'm not really trying to slight it, but I think if there's one issue to take away from Star Fox Adventures is that it's not enough Star Fox in terms of gameplay. Like there were some Arwing moments, there would need to be more in this supposed rumored Star Fox Adventures like game. And if there is that better balance, then I think this is a slam dunk.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, we'll see. It's a rumor. THX1138, thank you for the additional super chat here. Switch 2 on April 10th with 3D Mario, Metroid 4 in May.
I think that if it is coming in April, I think it is the 10th. Also, THX, maybe you are a Nintendo Forecast watcher, maybe you're not, but they made a very compelling case the other day for a reveal the last week of January and a release on that date in April. So we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. Metroid in May makes sense to me, though. I think it could be a little bit sooner, but I think that window is about where it's going to land.
Yeah. My thing with Metroid is that we know we're getting the art book in the summer of 1 through 3.
Yeah.
So I can see Prime 4 coming out June, right? Around when that art book releases. But the art book's not about Prime 4. It's about 1 through 3. So I feel like the implication of that is that 1 through 3 will be out on Switch by that point.
Yeah.
So, that doesn't... Obviously, that's just me assigning meaning from when that book is coming out, and there may be none. It may just be like, hey, this is when we're releasing it, and 1, 2, and 2 and 3 are coming out later. Although I think most people seem to agree that 2 and 3 are probably coming out before summer.
If 2 and 3 shadow drop or release in February, as Samus Hunter said to me, that's like then I'm all the way in on Samus Hunter's reporting. I'm gonna be really curious because speaking.
What if we just get 2 in February?
Then I'd take that too. I think that if a Metroid game releases in February, I'm on board with Samus Hunter.
Okay.
But I was remarking to Bo about this recently. I think that we don't know how Nintendo would treat Metroid Prime 2 and 3. There's 2 different ways you could treat it. You could either treat it as a Metroid Prime remastered situation or a Pikmin 1 and 2 situation. And I don't mean that in terms of the quality of the game. I mean that in terms of why they're released. So Pikmin 1 and 2, when they were released in June of 2023, that was very clearly a marketing beat for Pikmin 4. The sales of that were, that's great revenue, but in my view, that was kind of irrelevant, right? They said, here's a Pikmin 4 trailer, and additionally, right now, go play Pikmin 1 and 2 on Switch. That was building hype towards the 4th game. I think that if Metroid Prime 4 is indeed like April or something, I could see them saying in February, Metroid Prime 4 is releasing on this date, and right now go play 2 and 3 while you're waiting. And that could happen. That could be sick. Or they could say, as you're suggesting here, maybe because of the art book, they might say Metroid Prime 2 and 3 are out now, and we want to market that and push that, and that's a big standalone release. But to me, they're more like a marketing chip before Prime 4.
I just thought of something. So say Switch 2 reveals in January, right?
Yeah.
But we do have a direct in February about Switch 1, where they announced Prime 2 and 3. But they also give us the release date for Prime 4 in the February direct. And the reason this be kind of crazy is because by this point, presumably, we'll have seen Prime 4 in the Switch 2 reveal trailer, so we'll know that it's cross-gen.
Yeah.
Right? But we won't know about the release date. However, we would probably know the release date for Switch 2, or at least a month, right? Or at least season with the reveal trailer, right? And I guess the point I'm making is that they could do something where if they give us a release date for Prime 4 a month later in the February direct, or probably just a few weeks later, if that release date coincides with the Switch 2 release date, then we know. Like they could do a little thing or like, hey, by the way, Prime 4 launch title for Switch 2.
Yeah.
They might not blatantly say launch title. They might just say show the date, and we're like, oh well, that's the same date as Switch 2, so launch title.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see what the next thing they say, and specifically where they say the next thing about Prime 4. Like, I also wouldn't be surprised if we woke up next Wednesday and there's a Prime 4 trailer or something. Like, which would be crazy.
I would be eaten.
I would be so happy.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
I also, as sort of a sidebar, I think that whatever this Switch 2 reveal is going to be, I think there's a hard date on there, and I think that there are games announced in that trailer.
we're gonna have a number 2025.
I think so. I don't think they have the time to play it the way they played Switch 1.
I think you're right.
Yeah, I just don't think they have
Yeah.
enough time. I think there'll be a bigger presentation later with more stuff, but I think that when we hear about Switch 2, I think they're throwing the Switch and we're getting everything.
We're going all in.
Yeah.
Okay. By the way, I assume that because you're on Team September right now, that you're not expecting a reveal this month. That would be a long turnaround.
Well, this is the thing, and this is why I'm like, I play two games in my head. I play, okay, if we're doing April, this is what happens. If we're living in Abram world, here's what happens.
Right.
I think that we get something this month because they have to do it before the investor meeting on the 4th of February. I think that's just a non-negotiable. Even if it's launching in 2026, which it's not, I think they would still have to say something before the February investor event.
Right.
My personal reading of it is that you can say something, you can give a date, you can show a game or two in like January, and then you can have some directs about Switch 1 because you got to fill out that calendar.
Yeah.
You can date and market Prime 4 and ZA, and then June rolls around, and then we're blowing the doors off of the first 6 months of Switch 2. And at Summer Games Fest, you're going hands-on with Switch. At Gamescom, you're going hands-on with Switch, and then it launches in September. I think actually when you break it down and you think about a very busy hands-on preview period in the summertime, you can quickly get to September, particularly if you launch Prime 4 in April and you're keeping people busy. You launch Pokemon in the like midsummer months, you're keeping people busy. You drop a couple ports, a couple small games between there, you can fill it 9 months that are actually really exciting.
Yeah. I mean, there are some rumored games like a Fire Emblem remake, Kirby Planet Robot for Switch 1.
Yeah.
If we're getting also Prime 2 and 3, we already have Xenoblade for March. Like, there are some Switch 1 games, and if Prime 4 and Legends ZA are also fit into that equation, like, that's not a bad lineup leading up to September. I don't think that's what's happening, but it does make some sense. Like, they could get away with something like that. I mean, and we actually also have heard that there's supposed to be some kind of event in May. And interestingly, PAX East is never this late into the year, has been scheduled for May.
Yeah.
So it might be meant to coincide with having playable demos or demonstrations of Switch 2.
Yeah, you certainly could do that. I mean, that'd be huge. I'm going to PAX East, so I mean, I'd be all over that.
I think I'm probably going this year to PAX East.
Hell yeah.
So we're gonna hang out.
100%.
Cool. Yeah. Next super chat here. Leo Aguiar, thanks for the super chat. Switch 2 leaks. Nah, I'm hyped for Lego Game Boy. Let's go, Lego Game Boy. Let's burn a hole in our wallets. Let's do it. I got a question for you about this. Do you? It's coming in October.
Yeah.
Do you think this means Switch 2 is not coming out in October? I was joking on Twitter today, but I was also being kind of serious at the same time.
I think it's probably largely irrelevant, frankly.
This is my thing.
What'd you say?
This is my thing.
Yeah.
Like, I think obviously a big Nintendo game is still coming out during this period of time, but I just think that an expensive product like Lego Game Boy, it's just something you wouldn't do in the launch month of Switch 2. But also, why in the world would the launch month be October? So
yeah, I mean, I don't even think it's October.
Right.
I mean, to me, I have to imagine that a lot of this, like the release timing for that, is to coincide with what Lego needs mostly. Like, is October 2025 an anniversary for Game Boy? I don't think so.
I don't know.
No, because Game Boy launched in '89, right? So it wouldn't. It's not an anniversary year.
Oh yeah. You just mean in terms of year.
Yeah, or even I don't remember
Well,
the.
it came out April 1989.
Yeah,
So
so it's not even. See, you know what I mean?
maybe
Like
the
I think
Switch 2 is the anniversary.
it could be.
Yeah.
I think that if Nintendo had their way, they'd release it like here on the anniversary of Game Boy, buy this thing for the nostalgia factor or whatever. I kind of think that Lego's like, yeah, we got a bunch of big sets. We've got this whole in October, so we're releasing it then.
Yeah. I mean, usually Lego sets are just too expensive for me to bother, so it's kind of like
Yeah, I really wanted the Deku tree, but I couldn't afford it.
it's not like if I have a lot of money to just throw out, I guess I would, but I'm in a don't spend random stuff all the time period of my life. So
I
yeah,
am too, especially
yeah,
because I don't know how much Switch 2 is going to cost me. Not just the system,
yeah,
but the games and the controllers and everything.
right.
We could spend $700 on launch Switch stuff.
Honestly, very believable. Like I mean,
Yeah.
let's say let's lowball Switch 2, say it's $400, right?
Yeah.
Because you mentioned 450, like that's honestly possible, right? Let's say it's $400. There's also taxes, right? So
Yeah.
that's gonna shoot up, right? But then games, I assume games are gonna be $70. Let's say we buy at least two. That's 140. That already puts us at 540. And we're probably gonna want a Pro controller. That might be another $70 to $80. Let's lowball and say that's another 70. So 210 plus that's 610 plus taxes. Guess what? We're at $700.
Yeah, I really think that's what it's.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
gonna be a. I think it's gonna be a big day. I think it's gonna be a big spending day.
Yeah, it's gonna be wild. Continuing on, I'm just trying to catch up with the super chats here. Thank you for all the super chats, guys. But we still got the live chat, and I still got to do those pull-ups. So I am not trying to skip out here. I will do them. Red Beard and Sausage. Thank you for the super chat. I just got into Xenoblade and got the first one on sale. Incredible series, and it's so underrated. Thank you. And I love your Switch 2 speculation theories. Thank you. Very much appreciated. Yeah, dude, Xenoblade is so slept on. Like, I know I probably shouldn't get upset when I'm like, yeah, Xenoblade seems neat. Maybe I'll try it someday. No, try it now. It's like I talk about with my friends, like, yeah, Xenoblade's like Nintendo's Final Fantasy. I mean, it literally is, because like half the Final Fantasy team is Monolith Soft into the future. So yes, but also Xenoblade's just really good. Like if you like anime and you like RPGs, you should have been playing Xenoblade a long time ago.
I also think that, like, from the perspective of the exploration in the games, even if you don't like RPGs, there's something to be found there.
Yeah, if you're like, I've actually made that argument too. Like if you're a Zelda fan, like a
Yeah.
certain element of Zelda, it like in terms of like really enjoying exploration of fantastical worlds, Xenoblade is one of the best at literally that element. Their worlds are so like insane and fantastical and massive. Yeah. So we're on the same page there. And Xenoblade X is, I think that's an exciting thing about Xenoblade X is that it has that open world appeal. I think I think there's a really good chance it outsells Xenoblade 1 Definitive Edition.
Yeah, I agree. Also, when you jump off something really, really high in that game, there's a similar feeling to when you jump off something really, really high in Breath of the Wild. So that's my best selling point for the game.
Yeah, it's epic. That's something that Xenoblade does. So good. Pokemon Trainer Ray with a super chat. The comment was deleted, but thank you for the super chat. However, Pokemon Trainer Ray had a follow-up super chat with words this time. Left field question. What's the odds we get a Duck Hunt game using the mouse?
2%.
Funny, I was gonna say 88.6.
Really?
No, that's me going out on a limb. I don't think I think it's higher than 2% though.
Yeah.
Like, honest. All right. Okay. I don't know if there will be a full-on physical game that you will be able to purchase, published by Nintendo, with the Duck Hunt name that will use this functionality. I think that's maybe close to 2%, like you're saying. But do I think there will be a game that will have a similar style of gameplay using this functionality? And my answer to that is like 98% yes. Like imagine WarioWare. There's
Yeah.
a mini game that's based literally to take the Duck Hunt character and you can use that functionality. Like something like that, I think is 98% likely that there will eventually be a WarioWare game on Switch 2 that has Duck Hunt in it because the WarioWare does show off other Nintendo IP in brief moments. They use different functionality of the console. And so from that perspective, I think like a mini game of Duck Hunt will probably take advantage of the mouse feature. Assuming the mouse feature works the way we think it is, it's going to work. So,
Yeah, I think we're on the same page there, but for me, instead of WarioWare, it would be in that Nintendo Switch Sports sequel game. Because if you think about like We Play and We Play Motion both basically have a Duck Hunt sequel in there. It's literally the same type of environment. You're just shooting like balloons and cans and clay pigeons and things. So
and Resort, there's a frisbee element, and there's a dog that catches a frisbee on Wii. So, you know, if this is a Switch Sports Resort, that would be epic.
Yeah, I think it can come back like thematically like that and like the loose gameplay idea. I just think that the idea of like the game being about going out and like doing like real world hunting, I just don't think that's the type of game Nintendo's going to make anymore.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, I understand. Like we're not gonna see Nintendo make a game where you're shooting ducks.
Yeah,
dead.
It's like I don't think Wild Gunman is coming back.
Yeah, although in Breath of the Wild you do shoot ducks and birds and other things dead.
That's true.
So, but it's not the focus of the game, so it's a little different. Yeah, that makes sense. But I think in some way we're going to see something very similar. So there we go. Let's see here. I think we've caught up on the super chat. This is the last one for now. Adam Ginther with the super chat. Thank you. Think the curse will be used for DS emulation? Honestly, eventually, yes. That's one of the reasons why I'm excited about it, because I think it makes bringing back some old DS and 3DS games way more viable. So, I think yes. Obviously, I don't know. That's just what I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think that people often overstate how hard it would be for Nintendo to emulate DS games already. Like, you know, not that I would ever do it, but if you were to own a Steam Deck, you can pretty easily emulate DS on there and have a comfortable and easy control scheme. And I'm actually surprised that Nintendo never released like a thing that, because it's like the flip grip, right? But imagine if Nintendo made their own flip grip, and then you can just literally touch the bottom half of a 90-degree rotated Switch tablet to like play DS games, being like a niche functionality or whatever. But I really think that if Nintendo wanted to, right now they could emulate DS games, and you use a Pro controller. I mean, like for people in the chat, all of your favorite YouTubers who play Pokemon ROM hacks or Nuzlocke or whatever, they're all playing by emulating the game and using an Xbox controller. Like there are ways to get around the weirdness, and the cursor just makes it even easier.
Right. Well, that's the thing. Like most of these games, it's done with mouse and keyboard. A lot easier to do that if you have a mouse-like feature. So yeah. And to your point, it was already doable, but I think it becomes more elegant and comfortable for both portable tabletop and docked mode with this Switch 2 feature. So, yeah. All right. We are now going to come back to live chat, but as promised, because we hit the super chat goal, I am going to put my shoulder through the rigor because my shoulder's kind of messed up and attempt to do 12 pull-ups this time. Although last time I did them wide, I'm going to do it like this because I think it'll be easier for my shoulder.
Yeah.
So, and I struggled to 10. So hopefully I can hit it this time. All right. All right, here we go. Time to make a fool of myself.
Let's see. No, he's got it.
That's one of the
12.
He can do 12. So like, all right. Exercise
that's a nice setup.
while live streaming. That's
Hell yeah.
Dream. Okay. All right.
Here we go. Look at this. Look at that form. He's he's locking out. That's really good.
Thanks.
Oh, that's really impressive. Well done.
6. 7.
And he's talking too. This is incredible. Chat, you should be very excited about this here. This is incredible. Pull-ups are extremely hard. Okay, you got this. You got this.
That's 12.
Hell yeah.
In case I miscounted.
Look at that, going for the extra rep from locked out elbows. Phenomenal.
Thanks. Your coaching got me through it.
That's awesome. I froze for a second, but I think I'm back. Yeah.
You cut out there. Hold on. What'd you say?
There we go. I think I'm back. I also didn't realize you could hear me. I was just trying to keep the chat entertained.
Yeah.
I go to the gym.
Oh, I unplugged my headset so I could hear you.
Yeah. I go to the gym like 5 days a week, and pull-ups, that's a brutal back workout. That's huge. Most people cannot do 12 pull-ups like that. Like, that's a really great achievement.
Thanks. I should probably. I don't want to glaze myself, but I'll say that I bruised my rib cage. I wasn't sure if it was a crack or not, and it still hurts, but it doesn't hurt that much. So that's not counting but my shoulder felt pretty good there. That didn't hurt my shoulder. I think it's because I didn't go that wide, so it was easier.
Yeah.
Last on Monday I did wide.
That's hard.
A little bit of tension there, but I've been trying to rehab it, so it's been getting better.
That's great.
Yeah, gotta catch my breath though. That's So you go 5 times a week then?
Yeah, I love going to the gym. I bought a dip belt recently, so I can start doing weighted pull-ups. I just put like a 25-pound plate there. I can only do that for like 6 reps, but if you want to get your unweighted pull-up count up, you just do weighted reps for a little bit, and then you take that off, and you're just flying up and down the bar.
That's wild. I've done like the lat pull downs, but I always feel like those are inferior to just doing a normal pull-up.
Yeah, if you do lat pull downs, you gotta get lifting straps, or your grip gives up before you really are even training your lats that much.
That makes sense. How many can you do? After the weighted.
After I can do 12. We're at the same place.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right. So for me, I've been like training for basketball because we're going to do a basketball league. And as a man in his early 30s, I got a lot of rehabbing to do. There's a lot of because I haven't been exercising consistently throughout my 20s, so there's a lot of little things I got to fix, which is not easy. So if you're in your 20s right now, I'll say don't stop exercising. It's better to stay consistent.
It's fun. And you bring your phone to the gym, you listen to a podcast. Man, that's your podcast time. Listen to Andres while you're at the gym, hitting reps. It's awesome.
Yeah. Listen to me. Yeah. I don't mind. But to the live chat. Corny Puddle, shoulder of steel, shoulder of not deadness. Thank you. Let's see here. Scrolling through. Let's see if I can get to some ads from earlier. Lily Sore Atomy. Duck Hunt could still come to NSO. Excuse me. Could still come to NSO using mouse as a light gun pointer. Though you did say paid game, presumably excluded NSO games there. Interesting. Oh, well. I don't know. That's a good point, though. What if they did add this functionality to NSO games, which could also include Duck Hunt?
I could, yeah. Sorry, I'm freezing a little bit. I don't know if I should try leaving and coming back.
Yeah, you could try that.
Yeah, let's see. Let's see
if
that
works.
Link
in our DM, and you can just jump right back in. Okay. All right. So, my live chat's lagging too. Can't move the live chat. Oh, I see. Okay, should be good. Okay. Yeah. All right, there. I'm back to where I was in the live chat. Yeah, Google crashed out on me for a second. That's why I was Lost.
Okay, it
Welcome
seems a
back.
little bit more synced now. I don't know what was going on, but I think we're good.
Yeah, it was a little off at first. Well, not at first, but before you
there we
jumped
go.
out. Yeah. So we were talking about earlier. Lily Sora had said this: Duck Hunt could still come to NSO using Mouse's light gun pointer, though you did say paid game presumably excluded NSO games here. I think it's an interesting point, though. Like, they could add some functionality of the new Joy-Cons to existing NSO games, and that could include Duck Hunt, which would be neat.
Yeah, I mean, because the Wii U Virtual Console release of Duck Hunt had Wii pointer control, so they could do it again.
Or like, what if there's like another NES remix?
I would love that.
That in something like that, that would be a paid game that has that would just be a paid game that has Duck Hunt in there. So that's very conceivable. Honestly, the more I think about it, there's a lot of different avenues where in some way, shape, or form we could see NES games remixed. I mean, and Nintendo likes to do this. Like, it's not just NSO, it's not just the remixes. We had the World Champions, which was another version of that. But even like F-Zero 99, that's, they reworked a Super Nintendo game with some modern influence, right? Like, they could do that again for even conceivably Duck Hunt, although I would assume that the game would not be a full-on Duck Hunt game, but rather Duck Hunt as part of a mini game compilation of some kind.
Yeah. Did you play much of the Nintendo World Championships last year?
No, I almost didn't buy it out of spite.
Yeah, I didn't buy it either, but Tucker did, and we were living together at the time, so I played a little bit with him. It's cool, but NES Remix is so much higher quality. I was not really moved by this one.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is for me, like, I don't want to like poo-poo on the game, especially because I didn't play it. But I just really got the sense that it was a filler game.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, that 2024 has been mostly, that's how it's kind of felt a filler year. And I'm glad Nintendo was able to kind of maintain like consistent content, but it is clear that this is the transition year.
Yeah.
All right, so unfortunately, it's not letting me go back on the live chat. Like, it doesn't seem to have a record. Although if I go live, I might be able to. But when I go live, I don't see so like, I have two different apps, right? There's a YouTube app, right, where I'm just on there and I see it. And if you at me, I see an orange highlight. But unfortunately, on YouTube, I can only go so far back in the chat. So I lack the ability to kind of backtrack. However, I can backtrack on my streaming app, StreamYard, but I do not see the orange highlights when I am added. So yeah, there's challenges there. So I won't be able to get to all the ads is basically what I'm saying here, but I'm trying to like kind of look through a little bit. See if I can find some interesting little nuggets.
While you're looking, I just got a new chat message from Rikali. Shout out Rikali, big viewer BLB as well, says, Andres and Abram, any predictions or hopes for the next 3D Mario's gimmick? I'd love to see Bowser's Fury style traditional power-ups come back. There's so much potential for that.
Yeah, that's a good question there. I mean, the one thing I've been pretty consistent on when kind of like talking about what I expect for next 3D Mario is that I do expect it to be grander. And because I think it'll be grander, I think there will be more reason to introduce a mount. And actually, even Bowser's Fury had Plessy.
Yeah.
And I actually think that Yoshi is going to make a huge comeback here. Like, I don't think Yoshi is going to be like a random thing. I think Yoshi is going to be more of a consistent force in the next Mario game. I mean, we even have a teaser for the next Mario movie that is Yoshi hatching from an egg. Like, I think Yoshi is actually going to play a big role in Mario's 40th anniversary. I think it's also like maybe Yoshi's 35th anniversary or something too, which is kind of wild. Something like that. I got to double check. But it's an anniversary time for Yoshi as well. And if Yoshi's going to play a big role in the movie, and if I'm right about the Mario movie coming out around the holidays, this is something I forgot to mention during our debate earlier, but marketing the 3D Mario game that has Yoshi in it around when Nintendo will start to market the Mario movie that also has Yoshi in it might work really well for each other.
Let me throw something crazy here. It is this year the 30th anniversary of the original Yoshi's Island.
That's what I was thinking.
Also, at Super Nintendo World, the theme park, there's a long queuing section to get into the Mario Kart ride, and a big portion of it is inexplicably themed like Yoshi's Island, the original Yoshi's Island.
I need to go there.
It's sick. My girlfriend, for my birthday, right before it opened in 2022 in the state, or 2023 in the States, she got us tickets to go, which was awesome. It's really, really cool. But you queue for a while in this Yoshi's Island room, and I was sitting in there thinking, why is this themed like Yoshi's Island? What if they've got some kind of remake of Yoshi's Island floating around for this year?
So, like, when we're talking about Mario's 40th anniversary, like, I think all of that is on the table.
Yeah.
Yoshi's Island remake, and it could be a 2D game. Like, they don't have to, like, change anything too much about it.
Yeah.
But you have that. You have Yoshi involved heavily with the Mario movie. That's already a lot of Yoshi love, right? Obviously, not just the movie, but also the game, right? The 3D Mario game. Like, Yoshi could have a big role in this big anniversary time for Mario. As you said, 30th, right? I said 35, but I was just confused. And then, like, Donkey Kong is also maybe gonna play a role here, right? Like, Luigi may play a role here. Like, there could be some significant key titles from the Mario universe family. Could be pretty intense. So I saw this in the chat. Dragadon's Den. I think Nintendo will eventually release a second screen add-on, Switch 2 or later, much like the NSO controllers. They kind of need it for DS and 3DS in the future. And this is kind of one of the things why I like the mouse functionality we're getting, because I think it sort of helps to alleviate some of the challenges of that. I don't know if there's going to be a second screen add-on, but you mentioned like maybe like a grip that allows us to flip the tablet sideways, and you can kind of get that. But something that I think is worth noting is that the 8-inch screen is going to be so large, you'll probably be able to fit the exact same screen sizes of the DS and 3DS within that screen space with Switch 2, so you won't even necessarily need to flip it. And so if you have the cursor option, or just a screen in front of you, you'll be able to do the same things. So I don't think there's necessarily a need to add a second screen. However, I will say this: a second screen's expensive, but you want to know it's something that everyone has? A smartphone. They could conceivably add a feature where you can pair your phone in the future to your system as a second screen for NSO games, and maybe they just have like a plastic piece that supports it as a dual screen experience. Like, I feel like that would be easier for them to pull off than to have a second screen peripheral itself.
Yeah, that's a really interesting idea, tethering your phone and your Switch together. I hadn't even really considered that. I think your point about the screen real estate is 100% right. It's an interesting question though, because I know who this I know Dragadon's Den. Dragadon's Den is the #1 fan of Paper Mario Color Splash in the entire world.
Oh, okay.
Caleb loves this game. So there's an ulterior motive here. He wants to know about how you're painting your little cards in the gamepad and flicking them up because he wants Color Splash to come back. I know that for a fact.
Okay. That's a Wii U game. That would be a...
I think that is in the could be ported category.
Yeah. Something I'll say about the screen thing, the tethering. It wouldn't have to be wireless necessarily, because the Switch 2, from what we've seen of all the leaks, has a second USB-C port on the top. So there'll be more flexibility there. And it might be literally like there could be a little peripheral that holds the second screen, but also like it's just a cord. It's just a USB-C to C cord. There you go. Now, the one trick with that is that not all phones have a USB-C port. So you might need like a little like dongle to kind of make it work depending on what phone type you have. But that would be another option outside of relying on a wireless Bluetooth connection.
I think that top USB-C port's being used for a camera. I'm still in that club.
What games?
I don't even know if it'd be for a game necessarily. I think it'd just be for fun functionality.
I'll tell you that like there's a lot of possibilities, right? Like we could see the
Yeah.
return of a Nintendo Labo like series.
100%.
Yeah.
Or for somebody in your chat much earlier, sort of reading there, talking about AR games on 3DS. That's another possibility, something like that.
Augmented reality, man, that'd be cool.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of opportunity with a camera.
VR, augmented reality, like they could do both.
Yeah.
It could be in tandem. Like it can imagine like VR can also be augmented reality. Like they can literally do both at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely.
That would be intense. I mean, can you imagine like you put on a headset, right? And then so you're playing a Mario game and the screen is like the main focus, but they still put like additional things in your living room at the same time. Like there could be
Yeah.
like a Goomba walking up to you on your side. You have to kind of like avoid it and then continue moving forward or something. Like they can definitely play around with both, and that would be very neat.
Yeah, they're already messing around with that with Mario Kart Live. It was
Right.
very impressive. I mean, I had it. It kind of loses its luster after like an afternoon, but the technology is amazing, and I think if they applied that to something a little bit different, it could be outstanding.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I agree with you there. It would be very cool. I think we're gonna wrap things up here soon, but getting to some ads here towards the more recent chat. So if I didn't get to a chat from earlier, I'm probably not going to get to it. But if you put in some more recent comments, I'll try and get to them here. Ronnie Fazio asks me, do you think Metroid Prime 4 could have a memory shard mechanic like Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown? Did you play The Lost Crown?
I did. I thought it was excellent.
Great, because I didn't, so I was kind of hoping you could fill me in.
Yeah, so
I know I should because it's very Metroidvania. I played the demo and for whatever reason it didn't sell me.
if I remember correctly, this is like it's like a fast travel system.
Okay.
He called it the shard mechanic. Let me just double check here. Shard mechanic, shards, Prince of Persia, Lost Crown. Yeah, I was right. It is it's fast travel. I think Prime 4 will have large enough environments to need a system like that. But the way I think it will work is I think it will be like a more flexible version of calling your gunship in Prime 3. I think you'll just be able to call your gunship from more places and go to more places.
I don't know if I agree.
Okay.
Let me explain. I think it makes tons of sense that you could use the ship, especially if they're building off Prime 3 with the command visor. Like, it makes so much sense to do that. I totally get it. It would be very cool. But the reason I don't necessarily agree, and I should rephrase. I'm not saying I disagree. I'm just providing a counter argument as to why it might not happen. In that way, at least. It's because in Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, we have reason to believe that Samus is going to be traveling through portals. Because we literally see her traveling through a portal at the end of the trailer. Like when she gets to that forest environment, there's a portal behind her.
Yeah.
And actually, the logo of Metroid Prime 4 is literally the shape of a black hole. And there is a special device that they are carting away and also have images of on the computers that is of the shape of a black hole. And black holes have been theorized to be essentially the opposite ends of a wormhole leading to a white hole, essentially a portal. So there may be a core element to Metroid Prime 4 that is about traveling to different worlds or to different times through a portal. And as Samus is going through said portal, where is her ship? Not with her. So that's why I'm not sure
Interesting
about her using her ship specifically for fast traveling. Of course, we don't know exactly how this portaling may work, and it is only a theory. It might be handled a bit differently. So that's why I'm kind of unsure. But
Yeah.
at least with the point of fast traveling, I totally agree that there has to be in some way, shape, or form, be it through the ship or just like a portal thing, or whatever it is. I think there should be fast traveling. I mean, maybe it's not even like anything. It's just literally, hey, like when you're playing another game, you place it on the map, you go there, and that's all it is.
Yeah.
Now, I think it could be a little limited, right? Like maybe it's not to everywhere. I mean, I think about like the save stations in prior Metroid Prime games. Like, what if you can just fast travel between all your save stations? It's pretty simple. A lot of games work that way, where there's save points you can just fast travel between them. Isn't that how that's basically how like a lot of Souls games work, right? Or Elden Ring works that way.
Yeah, and if I have not played Dread in a number of years now, but there's a similar type of system.
Yeah, it's a little bit worse, or like it's there's an elevator system or like a rail system where like you can get to a certain point and it'll take you to another part of the map.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit there, but not entirely.
I think they'll have to do it. I mean, Prime 3.
They're basically shortcuts in Dread.
Yeah. I mean, I like that a lot. Like for me, a lot of people I know who played Prime 1 for the first time via remastered thought there's like, oh, too much backtracking, whatever. For me, I love that. I think it's just like, it's cool gaining the familiarity with Talon 4 and finding the shortcuts and knowing how to navigate it. But I think that Retro knows that doesn't hold up as well anymore as a design idea. And I think the game is just going to be so much bigger that
you don't need any padding.
Yeah.
Also, like Metroid games are super replayable. Like, what if it's only 15 hours? Big deal. You play it again.
Yeah, I actually hope it is. I hope it's not padded.
Yeah, I mean, I can also see the game being like 40 to 60 hour experience without padding. Like that's really not that much of a stretch for a lot of games.
I mean, Corruption is obviously nowhere near that long, but Corruption is significantly longer than like Prime 1 is. So
is it? I think Prime 3 is just easier to finish because that might be what it is. Because I remember Prime 1 taking me like 20-ish hours to finish. Prime 3 took me like 15.
Yeah, I'm just curious. Prime Remastered. I'm just checking how long to beat. I'm curious what the average time on these is.
Yeah, I'm talking about my original playthroughs, by the way. Like,
yeah. Oh, actually, the original playthrough. People say that Prime 1 and 3 are the same length. I think it could be that I didn't actually finish Prime 3 until last year.
Okay.
I'd never beaten it. So, and it took me quite a while. I think it took me more than 15 hours to beat Prime 3 the first time, and obviously, just I can play remastered in well under 10. So.
I think Prime 3 has less backtracking than 1. Like in 1, you're gonna get lost more. Prime 3 kind of strings you along more obviously on where you need to go, and so for that reason, I think Prime 1 is longer. But if you know your way, it's maybe not.
Yeah, and I mean, also obviously Prime 3 has you going to many different planets where that's simply not the case in Prime 1. So it just has different priorities. I really like the structure of Prime 3. I think Prime 3 gets too much hate. I really think that game's fantastic.
Well, I remember as a kid, like being a big fan of Metroid Prime 1 and 2, I was like, man, they really need to have like interplanetary travel. And so when they brought it into 3, I was really happy that they did that. In hindsight, I don't necessarily want interplanetary travel. Like I do, but the fact, like just me being realistic, like if I want them to kind of pull off like the intricate design, then having multiple worlds is a little bit harder to pull that off. Like each world could have its own intricate design, but to have each world to be intricately like interwoven with each other, it becomes possible through portals. Actually,
that's true.
So.
And your Portal series is also cool because the subtitle of both Echoes and Corruption directly relate to like a gameplay mechanic or idea. So it would make sense that this notion of portals and going beyond would be a gameplay idea as well.
Think about the Advent Horizon with black holes. Beyond the Advent Horizon. I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
the logo is literally a black hole. Like, yeah. I think there's something there. Chris Lanzer, do you think you can attach both joysticks to make the mouse more comfortable to use? No.
Oh, I kind of see what this person's meaning. Like if there was like a kind of a Joy-Con grip that you put them in and you hold both.
Well, okay, if there's a separate grip.
Yeah.
But then we're like, all right, again, these are not the normal Joy-Cons, right? But these are third-party ones. But this is a monstrosity of a mouse.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is, there's going to be a gap in the middle because the joysticks are going to be bumping up into each other, and also the optical input, like on a regular computer mouse, obviously the input's in the middle.
Right.
It wouldn't be that way if they were the two side by side. It's a cool idea, but I kind of doubt it.
Yeah, but I mean, we kind of talked about this earlier. Like, I think there could be an attachment that makes a single Joy-Con using this feature more comfortable to hold. It can make it a little bit wider if that's a concern.
I wouldn't be surprised if there's like a pro controller version of the mouse.
That'd be interesting. Man. Yeah, the other thing I kind of like about this is that because the Switch is going to be bigger, right? It's going to be that 8-inch screen is going to it's going to be noticeably bigger. And when you go into tabletop mode, you put out that kickstand and you use the Joy-Con as a mouse, like it's kind of almost like a mini like laptop gaming experience.
Yeah.
Right there. So that would be kind of neat. And I almost wonder if they could even have like keyboard accessories, like have like maybe like a smaller keyboard that you can just pair. Like you probably could find that without even having to like have it maybe made specifically for the Switch 2. But it might be neat to even have like keyboard accessories where it's like, you know, something that kind of fits the form factor of the Switch 2. And so you can kind of comfortably like have that small keyboard, have that Joy-Con mouse and the tablet like they're on a tabletop and like, whoa, you're like playing. This is a 1080p screen like resolution. Like this is not like, this is going to be a more serviceable tabletop experience than Switch 1 was by a noticeable degree.
Yeah.
So I'm feeling it. Let's see here. Oh, we got another super chat. Thank you for the super chat. We got 20 super chats today. That's wild. Attack the backlog. Thank you for the super chat, buddy. Am I the only one whose favorite Prime is Echoes? I love that dark world. Good to see you guys. Thanks for coming in. Attack the backlog. Thank you for the super chat. You are the only one whose favorite is Echoes. Now, I mean, of us three, I mean, which one's your favorite?
One's my favorite.
One is also my favorite, but I also love 2 and 3. So like, I don't really like sliding any of them. 2 is just painfully difficult. That's really all it is. It's just painful.
Yeah.
I've never actually beaten it actually. Like I've gone to. I need to beat it. I need to go back and do it. It's like the only Metroid game I haven't beaten now that I think about it. Because I went back and I did Zero Mission. I did the first Metroid. I've done I've done all the 2D Metroids I've done at this point. I've beaten Pinball. Other M, done it. I even beat the extra boss, the secret boss. It's literally just. And 1 in Dread, I've been like, I beat Dread on Dread mode, like I've done them all, but Prime 2 has my soul. Like I think the last time I tried a couple of years ago, I got to the point where there was all the keys, and I was like, oh, this is a pain in the butt, and so that was where I got kind of stuck.
The keys are 1 million times worse than the artifacts, I think.
The world's way more painful to navigate.
Yeah,
it's so easy to get lost.
I think Torvis Bog is like an amazing location. I really like Dark Samus. I think when you get to the ending of 2, you'll love it. Like it's a really cool climax. But the game is also way too hard, and it's sometimes hard. I think in ways that aren't super fun. Like I think some of the bosses you have to defeat are just super annoying. Yeah, it's certainly my least favorite of the 3. And it's also the one that I wish had gotten that Prime 1 remaster treatment, because I think it's the game that has the most issues.
Yeah, I mean, I think they did try improving the difficulty a little bit with the trilogy compilation, which is technically a remastering, by the way. Like they even cleaned up some of the textures and stuff. It's subtle, but it is improved. Yeah, it's just I remember some of the bosses being kind of painful, but I was okay with that. But the limited ammunition, when you're in the dark world, your life is constantly draining if you're not inside a little pocket. Yeah. And then it's very dark in the dark world. And the maps are like these complex mazes. And it's just it's rough. Is what it is.
It's the most hostile for sure.
Yeah.
I think just fixing the light dark ammo system would make the game like a whole point better. Like
I agree. I'll also say that if it was put on a modern platform, I probably would just beat it as is, because like going back to play it on my Wii U is cumbersome. It's annoying. I get a headache when I play on it because like the sensor bar, my Wii remote doesn't even have a case on it. Like it's just annoying. So like if I had like a comfortable modern way to play it, even without any changes, I feel like I'd be fine. But because I don't, it's just kind of it becomes more like a chore.
I beat it via Prime Hack, and people can go figure that out on their own.
There you go. Yeah. Anyway, I hate that I'm kind of like poo-pooing on Echoes, because I do think it's great, but
I think it's got some of
harder.
the best atmosphere in the series. Like I think that
Oh, it's so creepy.
yeah,
Like you fight like freaking zombies and stuff. Like it's cool.
it is super cool.
Yeah. And it also kind of has portals. So
Yeah.
Yeah. I think this will be the last chat. Well, this is Ronnie following up from earlier. Andre's restart. The memory shards in Prince of Persia: Lost Crown lets you snap a picture of an obstacle or area you can't interact with yet, and pins the picture to your map to help the player remember things. You know what? I remember playing the demo, and that was a thing. Something like that was.
Oh well, then we had a whole different conversation than what this chatter wanted us to have.
Yeah. But to speak on that,
yeah.
Just considering what they did in Dread, where you could place like kind of pins and beacons on the map, which in some ways kind of building off what they did in Breath of the Wild with that map, and considering the complexity of Metroid maps, I think there's just definitely a lot of reason to do something like this. And even having a snapshot to help you better remember, like that's a cool mechanic. And like just think about we were just complaining about Metroid Prime 2 and how complex and difficult it can be. Something like this would make it a lot easier, because I think one of the issues, like if I go back to Prime 2 now, it's hard for me to finish because I don't remember what's going on, right? Like it's easy to get lost, but if you can put pins and have little reminders or like snapshots, they kind of help you to sort of better visualize your adventure and what you were missing or lacking in a certain area, so you can kind of piece together what you need to know more easily and quickly. Like I think that would make a big difference. So it's certainly a cool feature done in Prince of Persia. Will they bring it to Metroid? That remains to be seen. I don't know if they'll do the exact same concept, but I have to imagine that they are thinking of ways, at least specifically with Prime 4, to make exploration more manageable. Now with Prime 3, because the game is so linear, it's not really an issue.
Yeah.
And I hope Prime 4. I don't want Prime 4 to be linear. I want Prime 4 to feel more like 1 and 2, just grander.
Yeah, I'll be super curious to see what game they pull the most from. I imagine that there's going to be a lot of 3 in the sense that there's going to be big action set pieces and things, which 3 had a lot of, like when you're fighting with the Galactic Federation or you're defending the bomb or whatever. Like there's just some sort of action set pieces in that game, which is really cool. But I think there's going to be more exploration than 3 has 100%.
Yeah. They got to. This is a different time. So, this is a different question, but this will be the last one for the evening. And the chat bumped, so I lost it. Darn it. Oh, here we go. Tater salad. That one vendor at CES, it's not a question, it's just something brought up. That one vendor at CES had a grip for Switch 2 that had bigger palm parts that could work for better mouse function. That's meant for like a grip when you're holding the Switch 2 in portable mode. But the point is that there are going to be different accessory makers that will offer different grips. They already do that for Switch 1. So if this is like if the holding the Joy-Cons in this way is a typical feature, like it's very easy for me to envision third-party accessory makers putting together grips for this mode. Very
100%.
Easily. Yeah. I know I said that was the last thing in the chat, but I'm looking in the chat. First off, shout out to Upper Nimbus. I'm doing well. Thank you, man. But I'm seeing like Gerhard talk about like a pin visor or a navigation visor, like that, for Metroid, like it would be. I don't know if I would look at it as a visor, because I think it would just be something you do in map mode, Maybe when you're in the scan visor, you could have the option to set like a beacon without the map mode, and so when you check the map, it's like, hey, you pinned this when you're in the scan visor earlier, this is what was there in that moment. Actually, to kind of expand on this idea a little bit more, because there is a scan visor, right? And you scan different things in different areas. What if every time you scan something, that is accessible from the map?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I could see all kinds of things. I could see you scanning big Chozo statues or insert whatever thing, and then that unlocks a fast travel point. I could see like a
Ooh.
Sheikah slate. You know how in Breath of the Wild you open up your Sheikah slate and you can put a pin on the map, and then it's just like a big glowing beacon. Like there could be a visor mode where you're standing up high on a hill. You look, okay, I want to go over there. Bang, hit that. Then you're walking around down ground level. You switch to different visor. Suddenly you can see a bunch of waypoints you yourself put in the environment and walk to them.
Like, what if Samus can shoot like flares?
Yeah.
And so it's like a flare that hovers in the air for about 30 minutes or so. And so you're like, all right, I know that that's something I shot in the air. And so it's even observable through the map as well as like some sort of like dot or something. But as you're exploring around, that flare stays there for a while. So you kind of know where you're trying to get to as you explore the world. Now, the issue with this idea is I'm almost assuming like Metroid has more of an open field to it, because if it doesn't have an open field to it, you probably don't really need like this flare option, but it would work if it does have that level of openness. And actually, I mean, I guess we'll close out with this, right? Like, do you think Prime 4 is gonna be like, is it gonna feel open world? Like, because I mean, when I look at the footage, like, there's nothing there that's like screams, "Hey, you can go wherever you want." It looks more like there's a clear path and there's some branching paths, but that's it.
My feeling is kind of like, when you get to like Fendrana Drifts for the first time in Prime 1, and there is like that bigger kind of like hub first area, and there's like 4 or 5 different doors off of that. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if there were bigger like hub areas that have more exploration, but then you sort of funnel off of those into more densely woven and densely crafted, more traditional Prime areas. I think there's going to be a mix. I don't anticipate it's going to be like you're playing Far Cry or something. But like, I played the Machine Games Indiana Jones game on Xbox recently when that came out, and that was really cool because I had these smaller sandbox hub areas, but then they almost seamlessly transitioned off into these more, not necessarily linear, but more contained quests in areas or whatever. So I think there's going to be a hybrid style, most likely.
I've always liked making the comparison to Dark Souls.
Sure.
And Dark Souls has some kind of wide areas, and there's different parts of that wide area you can go to that will lead to the next area. And there's not like a loading screen; you just kind of like keep going. There's some areas that load, but it's like a cutscene. But for the most part, it's just like from one point to the next. It feels continuous. It just feels like a world you're exploring, right? It doesn't feel like you're locked into necessarily a linear path, but you can't climb like random walls. There are clearly invisible barriers still, but it's also very interwoven, right? Like, you'll be exploring the game and all of a sudden you unlock a certain door, and a beginning area connects to a late game area that you did not have access to until way later. So I could envision something like that. That feels very Metroid. I'm trying to remember my run of Bloodborne, which is a few years back at this point, but Bloodborne is a more modern game than Dark Souls. I want to say it's similar, but I don't remember enough. I might have to go back and play Bloodborne, but Sony hasn't remastered it, so.
Interesting. Prince of Persia: The Last Crown is also fairly open world in a lot of ways, but what's interesting is it's more open world the deeper into the game you get, which is to say, like, it's a more traditional Metroidvania in how you expand the map outwards and how you need certain items and abilities to do so. But then once you've done it, once you're in the place, the map just becomes super, super big and super contiguous, and you can go back and do things. Obviously, it's a hallmark of the genre that you couldn't do before. And so I wonder if a solution to making it feel open but still feeling quite curated is if it's simply a really, really, really big planet, and it kind of populates in reverse with more things to do, the deeper in you get.
Yeah, that That's an interesting concept, and it got me thinking as we were kind of explaining that. Like, you know how like in the trailer we see Samus explore like this Federation area that's clearly under attack.
Yeah,
Like, what if that's the prologue of the game,
I
right?
think it is.
Right, and it's from what we can see, it looks fairly linear, right? Like there might be some branching, but it's pretty much like go from point A to B. That's what it looks like, right?
Yeah.
But if that's just a prologue of the game, then that's just a prologue of the game.
Well,
And
it's
then after that, it could just open up.
Well, I mean, it's really quite similar, frankly, to Prime 1. Obviously, the section on the frigate before you lose your powers and you're down in the overworld is extremely linear.
Yeah.
And it's very similar vibes, obviously, you know, in terms of narrative stakes a little bit, how the narrative is set up. And then the sort of like forested area that we get a tiny glimpse of in the Prime 4 trailer kind of feels like a stepping out into Talon 4 moment to me. So like I wonder if we have literally seen snippets from the first 45 minutes of the game and that's it.
I think probably.
That's
To
my
be
feeling.
honest with you. Like I think a lot of people are assuming, which, you know, if the case kind of fuels your speculation, the game is just done, by the way, right? Because if the game is just done, then they could easily just show us the beginning, right? Because that's not how it usually works. Like they usually don't finish the beginning of the game first, and it's a little bit more different spots at different times. It just makes that makes sense. It really does. And what I wanted to speak to is that like a lot of people have seen that and they're kind of assuming that there's not too much different about this game. But I've argued that when you take a look at the first trailers for most games, you don't know how different it really is yet.
I 100% agree, and I also think that there was a lot of need for this trailer to demonstrate that they haven't totally upended the formula.
Right.
Because we've gotten a lot of people who've like worked on Halo and worked on COD and these big AAA Western franchises like that have come onto the dev team at Retro. And obviously it's been so long that there was, I think, a real world where we saw Prime 4 and it was just a totally different type of game. And I think people would have been upset by that. So I think they're going the right way of saying, hey, look at this trailer. You know, the way Samus scans enemies, the way she's firing, the type of environments you're seeing, it's familiar because we want to prove to you that this is the Metroid Prime game you're waiting for. Then once we have that trust, we show you a second trailer where it's just crazy and new.
Yeah, no, I think so. Like, especially when you think about the restart and how they said they want to like bring something that measures up to the quality of Prime 1. I'm paraphrasing, but something along those lines. Like, it makes sense that they would show, hey, this is Metroid as you remember it. And I think that it's important, especially because like where the marketing is right now, it's not the position where they're going to be able to reach like this whole new audience, right? Like they first have to retain the Metroid audience that exists, and they can build upon that afterwards.
100%. And sort of the last thing I'll say to close off from my end is that I feel like people wrongly think of Metroid Prime 4 as a game that has been through a tortured development cycle. And that's true in a sense, because obviously it got its development restarted. But if you think specifically of Metroid Prime 4 beyond the Retro Studios game, there's no worry at all. You know, they started in 2019 when that development restarted. 6 years later, they're done with the game. To me, that's perfect. You know, obviously it's a longer time scale than a lot of Nintendo's games, but this is a Western developed game. This is a bigger game than Nintendo's used to. It's certainly more expensive game than Nintendo's used to making. A 6-year dev cycle for a big Western AAA game like this is perfectly natural. So to me, I see, sure, there's an error back in 2017 with probably Bandai Namco was a rumor. Nintendo put it with Retro, and then Retro shut up until the game was done. That's how Nintendo always does it. We just happened to see when they started. I think that gives people it gives people a false expectation.
They shut up and got it done. Like that is they put their heads down and like let's get to work.
Yeah, and
that is such a very, very good point. Yeah, I think Nintendo's confident about this game. I've said it like a million times, but I don't think they would have had it as a direct closer in June if they weren't confident in it.
I absolutely agree. Yeah. I get that 3D Mario is the eye-catching game of the year contender or whatever, but I really think that this is the game to watch. And obviously, I'm such a massive Metroid fan that my vision's clouded, of course, so take my bias as what it is. But this is a real opportunity for Nintendo to make a game on par, and I mean that like in a mechanic sense and a scale sense, is literally a Western developed game on par with the other people in the genre, and just do it better and bigger.
Yeah. You know, when I look at Metroid Prime 4 visually, I have like one of those uncompressed like trailers, so when I look at it, I'm just like, whoa, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I kind of think about how Nate was talking about earlier, how like it's gonna be a Switch game. Like there's no like even if they enhance it, it's not gonna look next gen. I don't entirely agree because I already think it looks next gen in some ways, right? Um, but I also think that just games that are made today are very scalable.
Yeah.
And so like my point is that the kind of games we see on Switch 1 are still the kind of games we see on PS5 to an extent. There's just a scalability there, right? Like Hogwarts Legacy is on Switch 1. It's ridiculous on Switch 1, but it's there, right? And so I just kind of think that Prime 4 already looks incredible. Like I think like from a visual perspective, we're gonna see it. It's gonna be amazing on Switch 1, but I think on Switch 2 it's gonna look all the better. And I'm not so sure 3D Mario's gonna come out and it's just gonna be like, oh, all right, this is clearly head and shoulders way better looking than Prime 4. I think 3D Mario is also going to be that title where like, holy crap. But basically what I'm saying is similar to 2017, how we had Breath of the Wild, that was like our holy crap game, but then there was also Mario Odyssey, that was our holy crap game. I think in 2025, Metroid Prime 4 is going to be a holy crap game, just like the 3D Mario will be, or like how Mario Odyssey and Breath of the Wild were in 2017.
Yeah, I think people think things about the technical potential of Switch 1 that aren't true. Like I just think that I often think about Naughty Dog and PlayStation 3. The difference in quality, visual quality, and everything between Uncharted 1 and Last of Us is you can't even believe they're on the same system. Like what Retro can do with the amount of resources they have, the amount of time they've had, I think it's going to truly blow away what any other Nintendo or Nintendo adjacent team has done on the system. And I think people are going to be shocked by what the Switch 1 can do still.
Yeah. I mean, Pikmin 4 shocks me.
Yeah, Pikmin 4 I love Pikmin 4. It's such a beautiful game.
I keep Pikmin 4, I think in my head, like has aged well. Like I keep thinking on my experience of Pikmin 4. It's special. But anyways, it's getting late. I see that Melfice added me. I will say no, I do not think we will get a Mario Odyssey 2. I think it'll spiritually kind of be a follow-up to Mario Odyssey, but it will not be called Mario Odyssey. It'll just be Mario, whatever it is next. But it will have a lot of those elements, but more so. So
yeah.
But that is all for now, guys. Make sure to check out Abram, Backlog Benter. He is a co-host to that YouTube channel. It is linked in the description below. But we'll see you soon. Take care. Bye.
Good night, everybody.